Moku, do you have any regrets now? Goodbye, Seina Kiyokawa. I am finally free. How wonderful it would be if you had always lied to me. If only I could start over. I would definitely protect her, no matter what, and make sure none of these tragedies ever happen again. Moku, well done. You suddenly open your eyes. It is your 18th birthday party. The huge crystal chandelier overhead makes you dizzy, and the commotion all around surges in like a tidal wave. The crowd has cleared an oval-shaped space, and everyone is jeering, cursing, and mocking. The person kneeling and crying in the middle, Seina Kiyokawa. She covers her face with both hands, letting out a mournful wail close to a scream. Yet the classmates mocking her not only do not hold back, but you, not only did you mock her, you are the very instigator of this incident. A broken wristwatch lies quietly beside Seina Kiyokawa, ticking away. The young woman in the crowd raises her head, her gaze sweeping across the faces of these guests as if trying to memorize every single expression, until that fierce, sharp gaze lands on your face, slowly turning into the despair of a lonely ghost. You hear yourself muttering, dying 10,000 times wouldn't be enough. In the private room, the noisy crowd surrounds the perimeter, wantonly mocking Seina Kiyokawa, who is kneeling on the ground and crying. You shove the people around you aside and quickly run over. Amid everyone's puzzled looks, you take out a tissue to wipe Seina Kiyokawa's face, trying your best to gently persuade her. Don't cry. If you keep crying, you'll turn into a little crybaby. You know very well that Seina Kiyokawa has an extremely high IQ, and any sophistry will only make her look down on you even more. However, Yoko is dissatisfied. She screams loudly, "Moku, hurry up! We still have to go to the bar!" Holding the tissue, your face twists in agony, wishing time could flow backward. You are doomed now. This girl hates you to the bone and must be plotting how to make your life miserable. Seeing you squatting and refusing to move, Yoko walks over in confusion and reaches out to pull you up. What kind of madness are you acting out? Get up right now. Hearing this, you abruptly shove her away. You get away from me first. Instantly, the entire room gasps in shock. Yet right at that moment, Seina Kiyokawa quietly picks herself up, brushes off the dust, and picks up the broken wristwatch from the ground, preparing to leave. She has knelt for too long and stumbles as if about to fall over, but your quick reflexes catch and support her. The sound of gasping around you grows even louder. Frowning in frustration, you open your mouth to say something, but Seina Kiyokawa doesn't even look at you, pulling her arm right out of your grip. Your heart is burning with anxiety. Your heart is burning for the wristwatch. You try to struggle, but she coldly spits out 3 words. Get lost. You want to explain, but Seina Kiyokawa interrupts you without a trace of politeness. With a voice as cold as ice, she says, "Have you played enough? It's time to let me go, or do you want me to stay and kowtow to every single one of you?" A single sentence makes you lower your head in silence. Just then, Yoko shrieks angrily from behind. "Moku, has your brain short-circuited?" You couldn't care less about her. You tilt your head back to look at the crystal chandelier and take a deep breath. The scenes of your past life explode in your mind. Next, it should have been you confessing your love to Yoko, and then leading everyone to mock this down-and-out young woman to your heart's content. And photos of her kneeling would have spread throughout the entire school, becoming a lifelong stain on her reputation. You know better than anyone that you were once the only light in her dark life, but you personally extinguished that ray of light and pushed her into an even deeper darkness. Until she burned with monstrous hatred, you roared madly in your heart, "I deserve to be paralyzed. I deserve to die a wretched death." But even if this is a dream before death, you still want to seek redemption. Looking at Seina Kiyokawa's crumbling figure, the pained expression on your face instantly turns into absolute resolve. You step forward quickly, reaching out to steady her. "Don't touch me!" Who would have thought she'd find the strength from somewhere to violently push you away? Her heart is completely dead to you. Yet you grab hold of her hand, the remorse on your face not faked at all. "I know I was terrible, but can you give me another chance?" Seina Kiyokawa snorts coldly and fiercely shakes off your hand. You step forward once more, blocking her path with utmost solemnity. "Just one last time. Give me a chance at redemption." Unexpectedly, the corners of her mouth curve into a sneer. "Haven't I made enough of a fool of myself yet? Do you want to keep playing with me? Moku, you truly disgust me. Tears stream down her face once more as bursts of laughter erupt from the surrounding crowd. You pull out a tissue to hand to her again, but she slaps it away with the back of her hand. Staring right at you with dead eyes, she says, word by word, "If you want to redeem yourself, Moku, I'll tell you what to do. Disappear from my sight. Better yet, disappear forever. I will definitely make your life a living hell." At that moment, there is no concealing the overwhelming hatred in Seina Kiyokawa Vere's eyes. Yet you feel that this is at least 10,000 times better than the tranquil despair of death. Behind you, Yoko's temple is throbbing wildly. The obedient lapdog she raised herself is actually wagging its tail at someone else. You are nothing more than a live-in son-in-law to her family. You are completely submissive to her, and she was the one who instigated the plan to humiliate Seina Kiyokawa. But now, the script has completely spun out of control. According to the plan, you were supposed to kneel on one knee, confess your love to her deeply, and then she would mercilessly reject you in public, completely breaking Seina Kiyokawa to make her understand that the so-called light she believed in was just a stray dog beneath her feet. But now, the leading lady's script has actually been stolen. Enraged, instantly she says, "This is your last chance. Do what you're supposed to do, and then chase this mutt out of here." Seina Kiyokawa drops those words and leaves without looking back. Looking at her resolute back, and then facing the aggressive Yoko, you let out a helpless sigh. Yet your gaze instantly turns incomparably solemn because you know there is something far more important than a confrontation or a banquet, a matter of the utmost urgency. The next second, you suddenly turn your head and announce to everyone, "I don't need a chance anymore. Today's farce ends here." With that, you also hurry away, leaving behind a bewildered Yoko and a crowd frozen in dead silence. Yoko bites her lips raw, her delicate face as pale as paper, red veins pulsing in her eyes under the lights. After a long while, her close friend speaks up cautiously. "Moku has been acting weird today. He smashed the watch, spaced out, and now he even ran off after that lowly wench. He wouldn't dare treat you like this normally. Do the two of you have some new plan? Everything you did was at Yoko's behest. After all, everyone witnessed your flattery toward her over the past 3 years. They thought you were a weak coward because your father's company is her family's supplier, and your future is firmly bound to her. You know very well how miserable the consequences of defying her are." Her friend immediately comforts her. "Don't worry, Pinger. He'll definitely come back later and beg for your forgiveness on his knees." But Yoko just scoffs. "Let him leave if he wants. He's just an obedient dog." She had already made up her mind to tell you tonight, not to harbor delusions of attaching yourself to her family through a marriage engagement. Yet they have no idea that right now, you are like an ant on a hot pan, frantically searching the crowd for Seina Kiyokawa. Where is she? How did she vanish in the blink of an eye? Just then, as you pass by a narrow alley, a man's voice abruptly rings out. "Kiyokawa, I told you Moku had ulterior motives. Why did you insist on going?" No one answers in the alley, but your heart instantly sinks. If you were Seina Kiyokawa's rotten first love, then this man named Romo in the alley is her bloody retribution in the flesh. You suddenly wake up. In the novel plot of your past life, Romo is the male protagonist, and Seina Kiyokawa is the corrupted female villain. You are nothing more than a trashy male supporting character used by the female villain to grind for experience. You remember now. On the very night before your confrontation at the cliff, Seina Kiyokawa told you that, after her death, this old friend of over 10 years managed to take over the entire Seina group based on her will. Male protagonist? Female villain? Since you have been reborn, you refuse to let yourself be a minor mob in someone else's script ever again. Furthermore, this Romo is no good guy either. He only offers empty comfort afterward and never provides any actual proof. While you are pondering all this, the two people in the alley spot you. A flash of hostility crosses Romo's eyes, and he takes the initiative to make a move. The next second, Romo spreads his arms wide, blocking your path tightly like a mother hen protecting its chick. He roars right at you. Haven't you tormented Kiyokawa enough yet? Ever since your rebirth, various messes have come at you back to back, instantly igniting your already volatile temper. Some random guy popping out of nowhere actually wants to step on you to farm favor points with Seina Kiyokawa? Your gaze turns icy and you fire back directly. None of your business. Step aside. Romo is startled into a tremor by your aura. his voice trembling. Kiyokawa is already this pitiful, and you still won't let her go? The 18-year-old you might have thrown a punch right away, but the you right now houses the soul of a 26-year-old. You know Sana Kiyokawa, stubborn pride, too well. If you scold or humiliate her, she will only silently record it and take her revenge later. But if people pity her publicly, that is the greatest insult to her. You look at Sana Kiyokawa standing behind Romo, your brows instantly locking tightly. Since that's the case, don't blame you for being impolite. You are already seen as a bully and a rich second-generation punk in their eyes anyway, so you might as well play the part. You lunge forward, grab Romo by the collar, clench your right fist, and swing your arm backward. Romo turns deathly pale with fear and shrinks his neck, but the anticipated, excruciating pain never arrives. Your fist merely pats his face lightly before you forcefully shove him hard against the wall. Looking at his pathetic, stumbling mess as he slides to the ground, you raise your fist with disdain. With just this much courage, you want to stick your nose into other people's business? If you're scared, go home and suck your mother's milk. What's the use of running your mouth? If you don't have the capability, stop talking big. You spit to the side, turn around, grab Sana Kiyokawa by the wrist, and drag her outward. Sana Kiyokawa struggles desperately, but your hand remains as unyielding as an iron clamp. With her struggles failing, she can only glare at you with eyes filled with monstrous hatred. Let go of me. Yet the corners of your mouth curve into an icy arc. You suddenly lower your head, pressing close to her ear like an intimate lover, and ask word by word, "Didn't you just agree to be my girlfriend?" "What? Do you want to back out?" Sana Kiyokawa instantly freezes. "How else do you want to humiliate me?" Your heart trembles, but your face remains completely calm. You couldn't care less about explaining Romo or any misunderstandings. You simply stare at her with dead eyes, declaring with the tone of an absolute commander, "Your identity right now is my girlfriend, wherever I tell you to go." Before your words even finish, a flash of avian coldness instantly cuts through Sana Kiyokawa. Icy eyes. At that moment, you feel as though you are seeing that terrifying woman from your past life who tied you to a wheelchair once again, and you cannot help but shiver. Yet you force yourself to calm down, even whistling a tune to play the unrepentant hoodlum. "Come on, walk with me." However, Sana Kiyokawa begins to tremble. She closes her eyes in agony, and tears slide down her cheeks. You pull her along, turning left and right through the alleyways. After what feels like an unknown amount of time, she wipes away her tear tracks and asks with a completely flat tone, "Can I go home now?" Without even thinking, you flatly refuse. Seeing her expression return to calm, you are actually somewhat surprised. So you explain, "Yoko will definitely bring people to block me. No, to block both of us." But Sana Kiyokawa clenches her fist so tightly that her pure face twists into a ferocious grimace. "I don't want to be involved in your affairs." Seeing her on the verge of a breakdown, you interrupt her without hesitation. "Then I'll send you back. I'll call a driver." As you speak, you pull out your phone to make the call. Suddenly, Sana Kiyokawa lunges forward, pinning your hand down hard. Her fingers tremble from the sheer force and her voice is squeezed out hoarsely through her teeth. "Why? It's already over between us. Why are you clinging to me? Do you want to force me to death that badly?" Staring at her, a strange glint flashes through your eyes. "I just have this stubborn temper. What's in my hands, I won't let go of even in death. And I also said, I really like your hair. Tying it in a ponytail must look great." Yet her temper is even more explosive. Sana Kiyokawa glares at you with dead eyes, her blue-tinted eyes welling up with ink-like hatred. She asks word by word, "You like my hair? If I cut it off, will you let me go?" Alarm bells ring loudly in your mind. You have seen this look before. In her past life, when she broke the news of her classmate's tragic death, she had this exact expression. Sana Kiyokawa has already corrupted. You snap back to your senses, but it is already too late. She pulls out a sharp pair of scissors. The next second, with a snap, she grabs a lock of her long hair and cuts it straight off. The hair strands drift down to the ground like burned-out plant ash. You instantly fly into a rage, shouting loudly to stop her from pulling such self-harming stunts. But Sana Kiyokawa ignores you entirely. Instead, the corners of her mouth twitch upward into a cold smile. "If self-harming makes you hate me and lets you let me go..." Before she can finish, she actually raises the scissors and slashes fiercely across her own face. Yet you react as if you've heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. snorting disdainfully. "Don't think slicing up your face will make me let you go." Staring right into her eyes, you say word by word, "I've set my mind on you in this lifetime, and I'm going to bully you for the rest of my life." At this, Seina Kiyokawa completely breaks down. She kneels dazed on the ground, begging in utter despair, "I'm begging you." Seeing her like this gives your heart a sharp tug, but you have no other choice. In this lifetime, you are going to protect her no matter what, even if she hates you to the bone. Just then, you think of someone. She is a doctor and can help treat her wounds. Remembering this, you immediately dial the driver's phone and drag her to the roadside to wait for the car. Taking advantage of this moment, you snatch the old wristwatch from her hand. It is covered in rust, and the dial is shattered. Even stranger, the center of the dial is shrouded in a layer of black ink, making it impossible to tell the time. Yet you clearly remember that in your past life, right before your death, this watch had emitted a glow. A black sedan pulls up to the curb. With a complex heart and a cold face, you shove her into the back seat and squeeze in after her. "To Aunt Peng's place." Seina Kiyokawa is silent as the grave, not uttering a single word or even sparing you a single glance. You hand her over to Aunt Peng while you stay behind to watch over her school bag. On a whim, you unzip it, only to find that it doesn't contain textbooks inside, but rather an account book. It densely records her earnings and expenses from working part-time over the past 2 months. Deep within the pages, you also find a torn-out piece of paper. On it, her secret is written clear as day. "He says he likes me wearing a ponytail, but I don't want to obey him in everything. I am not his toy. I also want to maintain my dignity in front of him. I know true love is two dignified souls drawing close to one another." Reading the final lines on the paper, you are struck as if by lightning. "Even if this is a dream, I hope it's a good dream. I also hope he can lie to me like this for the rest of my life." You hurriedly shove the paper back into the bag, your fists clenching so hard they crack. "Moku, you really deserve to die." The scene shifts. 5 years ago, bright sunlight streams into a stark white hospital ward. A little girl sits quietly on the bed, her brows knitted tightly, exquisite as a fragile porcelain doll. Just then, an old servant carrying a bowl of food walks up to the bedside, her voice trembling. "Miss, the young master sent the rice over. It's time to take your medicine." But the girl doesn't move at all. Those delicate eyes have pupils as dark and unmelting as thick ink, filled with the despair of a lonely ghost. The old servant can no longer hold back, pulling out a handkerchief to wipe away her tears. She says the girl's mother was the kindest person in the world, even leaving behind 100,000 as a farewell gift when she left. Who would have thought that years later, the mistress would simply pass away? Worried sick, the servant returned to watch over the young miss. Yet she never imagined that upon returning, she would find the miss waiting to die on a hospital bed like this. Clutching her chest, the old servant can barely breathe. "It breaks my heart, miss. You're still so young." "You can't just stay here and wait to die." Yet the girl merely hands her a cup of water, her smile heartbreaking. "Mother is dead too. Staying here at least means someone takes care of me, even if it's just to give me medicine." Hearing this, the old servant's expression turns intensely emotional. "Miss, the young master isn't taking care of you at all. He calls you little sister so affectionately to your face, but when your stomach hurts, he claims you're just throwing a tantrum because you don't want to go to school, and turns around to lock you in your room for 2 whole months. He even gives you painkillers to use as regular medicine, until you collapse, this time with a perforated duodenum, and were rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. Part of your stomach was even cut out, and it took half a year of recovery just to pull you back from the gates of death." The old servant cries as she mutters, "He's trying to take your life. And now he claims your mental state is unstable and wants to get you a psychiatrist. He's planning to drug you and literally drive you to your death." Yet the girl remains chillingly quiet, even claiming that her older brother cares about her and that it's just her own bad luck. Streaming with tears, the old servant finally roars out the truth. "It's because the master started asking about how you're doing. If this keeps up, you'll sooner or later die in this house." Grasping her tightly, the old servant begs her to run away tonight. Run as far as possible. That night, however, the girl doesn't run. Instead, she tears bedsheets and clothes into strips, braiding them into a thick rope. She is going to hang herself. Yet the moment she slips her neck into the loop, a pained cry from the old servant suddenly echoes from afar. It sounds as though someone is beating her. The girl jumps down from the stool and descends to the first floor with the rope around her neck, expressionless. Giving just one cold glance toward the direction of the old woman's cries, she thinks, "Where would anyone in this world care about me?" The next second, she turns and plunges into the boundless darkness. But she has no idea that your rebirth has already changed everything. At this very moment in the hospital clinic, you are nervously watching the doctor, whose face is exceptionally grave. The young lady's body is extremely weak. Her digestive system problems are quite severe. Pointing at the report, the doctor says word by word, "Her stomach is like a leaking balloon. Her digestive and absorptive functions are only 1/3 of a normal person's." You listen with your scalp tingling, too afraid to interrupt. But the doctor's next sentence makes your heart tighten even further. She also has numerous bruises and external trauma on her body. The doctor suddenly looks up, glaring straight at you. Which bastard is so malicious as to beat a malnourished young girl like this? You immediately put on a straight face, putting on an air of righteous indignation as you curse fiercely. That's right, whoever hit her is a beast worse than pigs and dogs. Only then does the doctor's expression soften as she hands over the medical record, telling you to take good care of her. But right at that moment, she suddenly asks another question. "Is this young lady your girlfriend?" Without thinking, you blurt out, "She just agreed to be my girlfriend." Yet the doctor's brows furrow even deeper. Staring into your eyes, she speaks slowly, "Xiao Moku. You haven't been home for a long time, and Moku Yasue is also very worried about you. Exams are coming up soon, so you still need to focus on your studies." Earnestly, the doctor advises you to stop hanging out with that group of people. Hearing this, a wave of warmth actually wells up in your heart. You nod solemnly. "Aunt Peng, starting tomorrow, I will turn over a new leaf." With that, you turn and leave, preparing to buy a bowl of millet kanji for that girl. You decide to soften your stance first. Meanwhile, light and shadow intersect all around. Today, you not only humiliated her, but also refused to let her leave. You are exhausted too. Right at that moment, she sees your figure appear at the end of the hallway. In an instant, her right hand dives into her bag, tightly grasping a pair of scissors. The sharp blades instantly slice open her finger, and bright red blood drips down between her knuckles. Yet Seina Kiyokawa's eyes remain entirely indifferent. She stares at you, approaching with dead eyes. "Since there is no way out, I'll drag you down to hell with me." Carrying soy milk and white porridge, you walk over to her with a fawning smile, but the moment you place the dinner down on the bench, alarm bells blare wildly in your mind. The next second, Seina Kiyokawa pulls the blood-stained scissors out of her school bag and lunges fiercely toward your chest. There is no crying, no shouting, only the absolute resolve to perish together. At that exact moment, your eyes meet hers in midair, and you even catch the corners of her mouth curving into a relieved smile. In a split second, you manage to grip her wrist with brute force, but the power of her dying counterattack is beyond imagination. Left with no choice, you thrust out your left hand and shove it right against the blades of the scissors. With a soft hiss, the sharp scissors instantly pierce right through your palm. Fresh blood splatters, and a chorus of screams instantly erupts in the hallway. Fortunately, the force behind the scissors also plummets at that very moment. The surrounding crowd descends into utter chaos. Some point fingers, while others scream for the police. Meanwhile, Seina Kiyokawa, who delivered that scissor thrust, is completely drained of strength. She collapses into the pool of blood you spilled, weeping softly. She pulled her hand back in the end. Clutching your endlessly bleeding left hand, you stand right where you are. You instantly realize that the girl in front of you has long since been dead inside, and the image of that frantic woman from your memories slowly overlaps with the weeping figure on the ground. Your heart receives a heavy jolt. So she was supposed to be such an obedient girl after all. You decide that things must change, because hard tactics are completely useless against this paranoid girl. You crouch down beside her and speak softly. It doesn't look good if you cry your face all messy. Yet she kneels on the ground with zero response, her gaze scattered instead, laughing hoarsely like a madwoman. Just then, 2 police officers rush over holding stun batons, dispersing the crowd. A female officer half crouches down to look her in the eye. "Seina Kiyokawa, you're a student at Ichiko High School, right?" Pausing for 3 seconds, the female officer points directly at you. "Why did you attack him?" Seina Kiyokawa's eyelashes flutter. Looking at the blood-stained mole on your palm, her lips turn pale, but she stays completely silent. The female officer asks multiple times with still zero results, so she waves her hand, signaling the auxiliary police to take Seina Kiyokawa away. Seeing that she is about to be docilely led off to the police station, you instantly block their path. What is it? Do you have something to add? Looking at the trembling figure behind the officer, you take a deep breath. I stabbed myself. Instantly, Seina Kiyokawa snaps her head up to look at you, her eyes filled with complete shock and astonishment. The female officer becomes intrigued as well, pulling out her notebook and gesturing for you to continue. Laughing awkwardly twice, you begin to fabricate a story out of thin air. Actually, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. She wanted to break up with me, so she stabbed herself to threaten, I did it. Total, dead silence. The next second, the crowd explodes. A bald man wearing a thick gold chain points at you and curses angrily, I bet 500 yen this punk is acting. Officer, look quickly and see if what's on the ground is just ketchup. You shamelessly flash the wound on your left hand to retort. Watch your mouth. Do you think I'm that gold chain around your neck? The bald man grows instantly flustered, tucking his head in and scurrying away. Meanwhile, another school-uniformed girl excitedly nudges her best friend. What kind of real-life Yandere literature is this? Hurry up and take a picture to post on the school intranet. The split second before a camera flash sweeps across Seina Kiyokawa's pale face. You violently rip off your jacket and throw it over her head to cover her up. Immediately afterward, you point at the gossiping girl and threaten her viciously. If you dare post this online, I'll dare come straight to your house. The young girl shrieks in fright on the spot, but right at that moment, the nearby officer lets out a cough. You instantly change your expression, turning into a well-behaved baby right before the policewoman. Officer San, I was just joking. I'm a law-abiding citizen. As a result, a young mother holding a baby covers the infant's ears and mutters under her breath, scumbags like this should be chemically castrated. Upon hearing this, you immediately turn around, point at your own face, and say, righteously, wouldn't it be a waste to castrate a guy this handsome? A chorus of jeers erupts from the crowd. The police officer finally reaches her limit and lets out an angry roar. She turns to look at you. Go get that bandaged right now and then follow me back to the station to give a statement. Yet you act as docile as an innocent baby. 2 minutes is all it takes. We're pressed for time. We still have to go to school after making the statement. The female officer is so exasperated she laughs. You still remember you're a student? Using self-harm as a threat. You've got quite the methods, huh? Of course. With such a pretty girlfriend, we obviously can't break up. The female officer scoffs coldly and ignores you further. As you walk out of the hospital, you whisper quietly into her ear. In a moment when the police ask, just say you wanted to grab my hand to stop me. Understand? Yet she keeps her head down and ignores you completely. Only when you poke her with your elbow 3 times in a row does she finally speak. It was my scissors and I was the one who stabbed you. Your facial expression shifts. If you say that, you're going to jail. Yet she stubbornly insists. Go to jail then. Furious, you jab her with your elbow again. Is there something wrong with your brain? Right then, the officer turns around angrily. You too! Behave yourselves! You can only lower your voice to drop a harsh warning. If you won't say it, I'll say it later. With that, you follow her into the police vehicle. Arriving at the mediation room, facing the gloomy-faced female officer, you speak up first. Officer San, the matter is very clear. It was just me using scissors to threaten her not to break up. The female officer glances at a silent Seina Kiyokawa and suddenly counters, then what about the injuries on her body? Without a single blush or a skip of your heart, you lie. Just normal couples arguing and scuffling. The female officer's brows instantly lock tight. What you don't know is that she already called the school principal earlier. Learning that Seina Kiyokawa is an exemplary student of top moral and academic standing, while you are a good-for-nothing campus bully who lives off others, the female officer's gaze toward you changes completely. Listening to the righteous and indignant scolding from the female officer, you are momentarily at a loss for words. Looks like admitting to hitting her failed, so switching to self-harm threats didn't work either. Matters having reached this point, you can only shoulder all the blame. I didn't hit her. I really didn't. It was just an accidental shove. Sometimes my temper flares up and I can't control it. Just then, your homeroom teacher arrives as well. She glares at you viciously, as if she wants to strip a chunk of flesh right off your body. You smile guiltily, but seeing that Seina Kiyokawa is still lingering and refusing to leave, you urgently poke her with your elbow. At this, the homeroom teacher completely explodes. "Little punk, social scum, why don't you just go to hell?" You turn your head away. After Seina Kiyokawa leaves, you let out a deep sigh. Over 3 hours pass by, and it isn't until midnight at 12 o'clock that Yuto Moku finally hurries over. He signs the guarantee letter and leads you out of the police station. Yet from start to finish, the two of you, father and son, do not utter a single word. Standing at the street corner, you finally feel the wound in your left palm burn with a bone-deep ache, pulling at your heart with every throb. Looking at this indifferent, middle-aged man before you, the anger you have bottled up for so long instantly erupts. You speak sluggishly. "I thought you'd have to wait until daytime to come. Looks like you weren't very busy today after all." Yuto Moku slowly turns around, pulls out a pack of cigarettes, and lights one. In the silence, you can even hear the sound of the cigarette burning. You stare at him dead-eyed, watching the fingers holding the cigarette tremble nervously. He smokes one cigarette after another, the thick smoke enveloping both of you. Finally, amidst a deep sigh, he delivers the soul-crushing blow. "Fiancées. If your mother were still alive, seeing you like this now, she'd probably be very disappointed. Ever since your mother passed away, I've never shorted you on your allowance." At that moment, you feel as though you've been stung by a viper, gritting your teeth hard. Ever since you were a child, whenever things didn't go your way, you'd use a knife to cut your wrists to threaten me. And now you're even using self-harm to threaten a young girl. I deserve to be tortured by you. Now that you're all grown up, you've gotten even better at using this trick. You swallow down a mouthful of blood-tinged saliva, staring at him dead-eyed. He puts out the cigarette and shifts the topic. "Yoko's father called me today. You humiliated her in public." Those words completely ignite your rage. Humiliated? I listened to your words and acted like a dog to her for all these years. And now I don't want to play dog anymore. Is that called humiliation? You stand your ground, every word dripping with blood. I'll lay it right here on the line today. If you want to lick her boots, go lick them yourself. What kind of attitude is that? Yuto Moku's voice suddenly raises. If your mother knew... Shut your stinking mouth, you interrupt him with a furious roar. You're the absolute last person qualified to bring up my mother. Yuto Moku stomps out the cigarette butt hard. Got some backbone now, do you? Let's see how long you can last this time. Long enough to outlast you straight into your coffin. Yet he just laughs, full of disdain. Without my money, you're nothing. Not a single person would look at you even if you crawled around like a wild dog. I'd rather be a wild dog than stay in that rotten house. And I don't give a damn about your stinking money. Keep it to spend on the woman you keep on the side. You? Enraged, Yuto Moku raises his hand, a slap about to come crashing down. Yet you show zero fear, instead leaning your face right forward. Go ahead, hit right here. The strength you used to beat me when I was a kid was too weak anyway. Just beat me to death already. Glaring at you, he ultimately lacks the strength to swing his raised hand down. Don't come crawling back, begging me later. With that, he turns around and climbs into a black sedan. You stagger backward, crashing into a trash can, completely drained of strength. Leaning against the cold metal siding, you slowly crouch down, curling up into a ball as your heart spasms even more violently. You bury your face in your knees, your hands convulsively clutching at your hair, wanting to roar aloud, but only a hoarse whimpering escapes. Right then, a shadow envelops you. You catch a faint, drifting scent of jasmine, remarkably similar to the scent of your mother. Instinctively, you grab the pant leg of the newcomer, clutching it like a drowning straw, crying like a pig on the side of the road in the middle of the night, so damn annoying. The pant leg slips away from between your fingers. It is Seina Kiyokawa. She crouches on the ground, her eyes as deep as the flames of hell. Looking at you, Seina Kiyokawa experiences a momentary trance, but she immediately shakes her head to clear it, warning herself in her heart. The one squatting on the ground is a shameless bastard, and he brought this entirely on himself. Hearing that taunt, you snap your head up with vigilance. The instant you clearly see who it is, a sliver of light sparks to life in your eyes. Yet your opening words are completely devoid of courtesy. Are you sick in the head, not going home in the middle of the night just to scare people here? Ignoring your anger entirely, Seina Kiyokawa throws out the question weighing on her heart. Why did you help me? Staring right at you with dead eyes, she says, back at the hospital, I genuinely wanted to kill you. Your mind spins into a manic frenzy, and you impulsively yell out of self-abandonment. You already agreed to be my girlfriend. I wanted to help, so I helped. What's it to you? Don't even think about giving me a pair of scissors. Even if I die, I won't let you go. If I die, I'll turn into a vengeful spirit and come find you every single night. Having listened to all that, Seina Kiyokawa merely opens her mouth, taking ages to squeeze out a single sentence. You really should book an appointment at the psychiatric department. That completely flat statement almost scares you half to death with anger. You stubbornly squat back down on the ground like an aggrieved little daughter-in-law. Seina Kiyokawa makes a new move instead, fishing out a handkerchief from her pocket and handing it to you. Are you going to cry? You retort irritably, want to watch me cry and mock me for a bit? To which she replies with total seriousness, you'd better not cry. You sound so awful when you wail the police station might dispatch an officer to arrest you. That makes you even angrier. You jump straight to your feet, snatch the handkerchief away, and violently blow a massive glob of snot into it. Seina Kiyokawa frowns deeply at the sight. After a moment of thought, she simply takes the handkerchief back, turns around, and walks away without the slightest hesitation. Watching her back, you scurry right behind her like a puppy again, instantly switching back to a thick-skinned, shameless hoodlum persona. Let me walk you home. In the middle of the night like this, what if you run into a delinquent? How dangerous is that? No need, Seina Kiyokawa says without looking back. Then she abruptly stops in her tracks, turns her head, and gives you a blank, expressionless glare. You instantly realize she is referring to none other than yourself, but you don't get annoyed. You just brazenly tag along the entire way. The two of you walk in silence for 10 minutes until you are practically at her house. Seina Kiyokawa suddenly stops dead in her tracks. Why did you run out of the birthday banquet? You blurt out, my girlfriend left, so what meaning was there in me staying behind? What on earth do you want to get out of me now? Seina Kiyokawa spins around sharply, staring at you with dead eyes. Looking at her face illuminated by the streetlights, you lose yourself for a second. Right after, you slap your own forehead in frustration. Crap. How am I supposed to explain this behavior of constantly flipping back and forth and ruining my persona? Racking your brains, your thumb constantly digs and picks at your collar, sweating profusely from anxiety. You stammer out a few disjointed phrases. Didn't want to get anything out of you. Just suddenly had a moment of profound enlightenment and wanted to turn over a new leaf. Yet Seina Kiyokawa lets out a sarcastic sneer. I've noticed a habit of yours. Every time you lie, you habitually curl your right thumb. Your jaw drops in blank shock. You use your injured left hand to fiercely smack your right thumb. I told you to be honest. Without missing a beat, Seina Kiyokawa continues. And you have another habit. Whenever you're about to lie, your eyeballs spin around in circles. Taking a deep breath, you pinch the bridge of your nose in an attempt to bluff your way through. Who knew you cared about me so much? But she fires right back. You're still looking to find amusement at my expense, aren't you? Right at that moment, the night breeze lifts the hem of her shirt, and you suddenly catch a glimpse of a glaring patch of bruised discoloration around her waist. Instantly, in front of the sensitive and suspicious Seina Kiyokawa, the contrast between your previous actions and your current behavior is simply too drastic. The damage you inflicted on her is even harder to make up for. At this point, you have completely lost her trust. Struggling to control your trembling thumb, you try to explain further. I am treating you sincerely, and I truly want to turn over a new leaf. But Seina Kiyokawa scoffs coldly. I don't need your explanations. Her words are bone-chillingly cold. I know you still want to keep playing around with me. If that's what you want, just say it straight. No need to play these hypocritical, warm little routines. You said I'm your girlfriend? Fine. Then I am. Those few words make your system crash on the spot. Your brain was still stuck on the idea of starting out as friends. Jolting upright in surprise, you lean close to her face, a look of utter disbelief written across your features. You even pull on a particularly sorrowful expression. Should I accompany you to the neurology department tomorrow to check if getting hit today broke your brain? Yet the corners of Seina Kiyokawa's curl up into a cold smile. I said, you are already my boyfriend. Word by word, with crystal clarity, she says, whatever you want to do to me, from now on, I'll let you do it. You freeze completely utterly incapable of understanding her thought process. You clearly remember that in the former timeline, after she helped Romo home, she never spoke another single word to you. Yet now, after you gave her a scissor stab, she instead agrees to become your girlfriend? What on earth is going on here? After lingering on your thoughts for a long while, you speak up cautiously, but your damn scummy, offensive persona just cannot control your own mouth. Didn't you want me to disappear from your sight forever? You blurt out. Why the sudden change of tune? The moment the words leave your mouth, Seina Kiyokawa draws in a deep, cold breath. Without uttering a single word, she spins around and walks away. Only then do you realize you said the wrong thing. You quickly trot after her to do damage control. Are you planning some kind of revenge? Being my girlfriend isn't a good position. It's too easy for people to find out. Look at how I humiliated you earlier. The moment I end up paralyzed, the police will investigate and know it was you instantly. You explain anxiously, terrified that she might do something foolish. Think about your family. They would be heartbroken. But Seina Kiyokawa abruptly stops in her tracks. Lowering her voice, she mutters. She lowers her voice and mutters. You said not to break up, and I agreed. You want to find amusement at my expense, and I have no objections either. What on earth else do you want me to agree to? She finally explodes completely. You really are an utterly repulsive piece of work. You are completely dumbfounded by her hysterical outburst. Only then do you understand. Because she hates you so much, every single word you say looks like it has an ulterior motive in her eyes. You quickly raise both hands in surrender, your left hand's bandage looking all the more crimson. Let's calm down first. I'm your boyfriend now, and we still have 4 months left, right? I'll do everything in my power to let you study in peace. With that, you give her zero chance to retort, turn around, and walk away. Meanwhile, when Seina Kiyokawa arrives back at her maternal grandmother's house, it is already past 1 in the morning. Every household's lights have long since been extinguished, but her grandmother's bedroom light is still on. Scanning the room, she spots several beer bottles sitting on the living room coffee table, causing Seina Kiyokawa's brows to instantly lock together. She pushes open her grandmother's brightly lit bedroom door, which was left cracked ajar by a thin sliver. The moment she steps inside, she sees her grandmother's elderly frame lying flat and rigid on the cold floor tiles. A cut on the old woman's wrinkle-filled forehead has already scabbed over. Scared out of her wits, Seina Kiyokawa drops her school bag with a loud thud, dropping to her knees to frantically support her grandmother. Grandmother Chengying sits back up on the bed with a wobble, and after catching her breath twice, she reaches out to stroke Seina Kiyokawa's face. Oh dear, Yumi, how'd you get a bruise on your face? Ignoring her own injuries entirely, she chokes up with heartbroken anguish. Which heartless bastard bullied you? Grandmother's gonna go give them a piece of my mind, even if it breaks these old bones of mine. A fit of violent coughing interrupts her words. Seina Kiyokawa tries to pat her back, but her wrist is gripped tightly in a bony, vice-like grasp. What a tragedy. Her grandmother's cloudy eyes are filled with bloodshot veins. The next second, she suddenly covers her face and wails aloud. Back then, your mother handed you over to me, but my shameless old face had you sent back to Yutomoku's place, costing you half your life over there. Your fate has been so bitter, and it's all grandmother's fault. If you want to hate someone, hate grandmother. When she was a teenager, the little girl lying on a hospital bed waiting to die certainly did harbor hatred, but today, facing her only remaining close kin, she reveals a rare gentleness. I've never hated grandmother, she asks softly. Grandmother, how did you end up falling? Her grandmother sighs deeply. Getting up in the night for water, I tripped over the little stool. Seina Kiyokawa's eyelashes flutter violently, her gaze shooting straight toward the full glass of water on the nightstand. She instantly falls silent. Grandmother, at your age, you can't handle this. Let me check on you. Yet you could never have imagined that right after you turned to leave, Seina Kiyokawa returned home to witness an even more terrifying scene. When she turned her head, the dim yellow light happened to sweep across the bruise on the back of her neck. Her grandmother's gaze instantly turns sharp, violently grabbing Seina Kiyokawa's wrist. Who bullied you like this? I'm going to find your teachers tomorrow. Seina Kiyokawa lowers her head, using her shadow to conceal her expression. I just fell during gym class, grandmother. You should get some rest early. But her grandmother suddenly sighs. Yumi, I heard there's a boy named Moku at your school who's always hanging around you. His family has money, but we don't care about that. You need to focus on your studies and rely on yourself. Understand? Sana Kiyokawa stays silent for a few seconds. Him and I have nothing to do with each other. Refusing to believe it, her grandmother persists with earnest persuasion. When looking for a partner, you must look for an equal match. I think that Romo boy is quite nice. Good grades, good character. He definitely won't bully you after marriage. Sana Kiyokawa's tone turns completely indifferent. I'm about to take the university entrance exams. Shifting the topic abruptly, she asks, when you fell earlier, why didn't you call Uncle Cheng to help you up? A flash of disappointment instantly crosses her grandmother's eyes. He got drunk and ran off to mess around again. As if having made up her mind, her grandmother says, Yumi, grandmother only has that old house and a little bit of savings under my name. Studying costs money and your parents are gone. I'll leave the savings to you and the house to your Uncle Cheng, all right? Sana Kiyokawa refuses immediately. I don't want your money. I'll earn it myself. She knows very well that her good-for-nothing freeloader Uncle Daiki would turn the house completely upside down if he found out the property was given to her. She can never accept it. However, what she doesn't know is that her Uncle Daiki is lurking in the shadows, listening with a gloomy expression, having already had a massive argument with her grandmother earlier over refusing to give him red envelope money. Even in a fit of rage, he actually shoved her maternal grandmother down when the old woman pulled out that package wrapped in brown paper from the storage box. The door was kicked open violently. Daiki strode in with a furious expression on his face and started cursing the moment he opened his mouth. How can you be so biased? What's the use of leaving anything to this girl? When she graduates from high school, just have her marry someone to get some bride price. Why bother letting her keep studying? Confronted with her uncle's vulgar abuse, the grandmother's gaze instantly turned ice cold. Find someone with money? Your older sister found someone with money and ended up jumping off a building. Those words drove straight into Daiki's heart like a sharp nail. The grandmother's voice was trembling. Yumi is a human being, not some piece of merchandise for you to trade. Yet Daiki dismissed it with a nonchalant sneer. That useless girl of mine was just stupid. As for this little girl, I'm the one who has to give the nod before anyone can marry her. Hearing that, the grandmother trembled all over with anger. She snatched up a ceramic cup from the side and hurled it at him. My daughter was deceived by scumbags, and now you still dare to target Yumi? Get out! However, Daiki easily dodged sideways high on alcohol. The box of malicious thoughts inside him cracked completely open. You old hag, protecting a good-for-nothing girl instead of spending money on your own grandson. The grandmother instantly realized something was terribly wrong. She turned around, trying to shove the package into Sana Kiyokawa's arms. But it was already too late. Daiki lunged forward, grabbed her by the collar, and jerked her back violently, sending the elderly woman stumbling toward the floor. Sana Kiyokawa rushed forward and tightly wrapped her arms around her grandmother. To her horror, Daiki's target wasn't the person at all. He snatched the package right out of her grandmother's arms and turned to bolt. I'll be taking this cash gift. The grandmother couldn't catch her breath, her chest heaving violently. She forced herself back up and chased after him in tears. That's Yumi's college tuition money. Why are you taking it? She grabbed desperately at the hem of Daiki's jacket. But the man showed not an ounce of mercy, shaking her off with a vicious shove. The 60-something-year-old woman was sent sprawling hard onto the floor, wailing bitterly. Meanwhile, Daiki disappeared into the night without looking back. Sana Kiyokawa knelt on the ground, holding her grandmother and gently patting her back. With her face covered in tears, the grandmother sobbed uncontrollably. My poor Yumi. Grandmother is useless. I couldn't protect your mother. And now I can't protect you either. Yet Sana Kiyokawa remained exceptionally calm. Grandmother, don't cry. I'll earn the tuition myself. Blow after blow had long since left her numb. Pain and hardship seemed to be the entirety of her existence, as her tears continued to fall unchecked. Early the next morning, she dragged her exhausted body to school. Seeing her, Romo looked filled with worry. What on earth happened yesterday? I heard the counselor even went to the police station. He gritted his teeth as he warned her. You had better not go soft on Yutomoku. That guy is an absolute lunatic. Sana Kiyokawa's lips parted slightly as she tried to speak the truth. But before she could get a word out, a figure stepped right in to answer for her. I'm no lunatic. With a sudden heavy bump, Romo was sent flying straight into the hedge. You, on the other hand, acted as cool as a cucumber, flashing a fawning smile at Seina Kiyokawa. Morning! Seina Kiyokawa frowned deeply. You acted like nothing happened, reaching over to pull Romo out of the bush while hypocritically dusting off his leaves with loud slaps, making him yelp in indignation. Seina Kiyokawa finally snapped, "Have you lost your mind yet?" You sidled up to her with a forced, crooked grin, carrying a massive bag of breakfast, soy milk, fried breadsticks, millet porridge, and large meat buns. You thrust the bag unceremoniously into her arms. "Here!" Romo fled in panic. And so, amidst the dropped jaws of the entire school, you and Seina Kiyokawa walked into the school grounds side by side. But the very next second, Seina Kiyokawa walked into the classroom with a blank expression, not even sparing you a glance. With her stomach growling, she began furiously catching up on her homework while the breakfast you brought was tossed entirely to the side. Just then, two male classmates started cackling loudly. "Did you not go comfort Yoko last night? She got so pissed, she smashed a bunch of beer bottles." You felt a chill run down the back of your neck. Though Seina Kiyokawa didn't even lift her head, you waved a hand dismissively like swatting away a fly. "It has nothing to do with that Yao girl." With that, you shamelessly pulled up a chair right next to Seina Kiyokawa, picked up the meat bun she had ignored, and began eating with obvious relish. Seina Kiyokawa's brow furrowed even tighter because the sound of you eating was simply atrocious, like a starving wild boar devouring its food. She finally looked up at you. "Can't you go eat outside?" You intentionally played dumb. Good food shouldn't go to waste. Since you won't eat the breakfast I bought, I have no choice but to finish it myself. You picked up the cup of millet porridge, sweet, warm, and comforting, along with the wonderfully crispy breadsticks. Just as Seina Kiyokawa's expression turned thoroughly dark, you deliberately let out a loud burp, stood up, and headed toward the restroom. I'm stuffed." You knew full well that her home life was completely wrecked, but she was too stubborn, preferring to let her stomach cramp in pain. The moment you stepped into the restroom, a few guys surrounded you while puffing on cigarettes. "Want a smoke?" They instantly noticed the gauze wrapped around your left hand. "What happened to your hand?" You immediately puffed out your chest and began bragging, "Ran into some robbers last night. I took them down in 3 moves and even spent a night at the precinct." Everyone was praising me. You laughed heartily, popping a cigarette between your lips, but suddenly Seina Kiyokawa's cold face flashed in your mind. You instantly lost all interest, crushing the cigarette butt into the drain with a gloomy expression. "I've got things to do," and strode rapidly back to the classroom. You returned carrying an identical paper bag, quietly sliding it in front of her. The logo of a local bakery was clearly stamped across the front. She snapped her head up. "Will you ever quit?" Lowering your voice into a tone only she could hear, you muttered, "If you really can't eat it, just help me finish it." Without giving her a chance to refuse, you turned right back around to horse around with your group of bad influence friends. She cautiously glanced up to ensure you weren't paying attention, then placed the soy milk on her lap, lowered her head, and took a stealthy sip through the straw. The sweet red bean flavor and rich soybean warmth instantly thawed her out, and her stomach ache subsided. She gave herself an excuse. "I'm only drinking it so he doesn't keep coming over here to annoy me." Next, she pulled out the meat bun, taking a tiny nibble. The savory juice burst inside her mouth, and she held it on her tongue for a long time before finally swallowing. She ate only one and stuffed the remaining 2 buns deep into her desk drawer. She knew how expensive bakery food was and wanted to save them to bring home to her grandmother tonight. Meanwhile, after finishing your loud boasting, you abruptly stood up from your seat and walked straight toward her. Seina Kiyokawa's body instantly stiffened. Having just eaten the breakfast you provided, she had no idea how to face you, so she simply pretended to ignore you and kept writing on her practice test. But that last bite of the bun in her mouth was something she didn't dare swallow in front of you. You spoke up directly. "Hey girlfriend, I'm sitting next to you from now on." You had previously been stationed in the very last row, but now you took the empty seat right beside her. The smiling, sunny expression on your face looked like a cheerful young man, yet the words coming out of your mouth sent her plunging into an icy abyss. Seina Kiyokawa kept her tone frosty. "Where you sit is your business, but don't interfere with my studying." You smiled and wagged your gauze-wrapped left hand. "Class beauty, did you forget what you said yesterday? What kind of girlfriend talks to her boyfriend in that tone? Besides, from now on, at 6 o'clock every morning, I'm bringing breakfast straight to this desk. My dear girlfriend had better be here waiting for me. You stared right into her eyes, speaking with absolute deliberation. If you aren't here, I'll just go straight to your house. Seina Kiyokawa finally lifted her gaze from the test paper. She glared at you, her eyes brimming with disgust. Why are you so utterly malicious, like a venomous snake? A venomous snake? You grinned even wider. Snake venom is supposed to be a great tonic. I'll take that as a compliment from my girlfriend. You leaned in close, lowering your voice. All right, maybe tomorrow I'll add some snake extract to your breakfast since your constitution is so weak. Seina Kiyokawa's face turned pale with anger as she glared at you as if you were a monster. You completely ignored her glare and even raised an eyebrow. Just then, a sudden commotion broke out at the classroom doorway. A group of girls swarmed around a central figure as she walked in, none other than the birthday party host from yesterday, Yoko. Yoko's eyes immediately locked onto Seina Kiyokawa sitting pale-faced beside you. Her brows furrowed deeply as she marched straight up to your desk. What on earth was your game yesterday? My game? You gave her a bewildered look. Isn't it obvious? Kiyokawa agreed to be my girlfriend. My girlfriend wanted to leave, so of course I left with her. Isn't that completely reasonable? Yoko's close friend, Rinko, immediately chimed in. Is that any way to talk to Yoko? Are you even a man? You abruptly shoved your desk back and stood up, locking your gaze onto Rinko with a hard stare. In that instant, you let out a cold internal chuckle. Yutomoku, oh Yutomoku, just how blind were you back then to actually trust these women? Groveling to please Yoko while hurting others, only to get tossed aside like garbage in the end. You let out a cold scoff and waved your hand. Right? I'm definitely not a man. Why don't you go find some successful guy to suck up to Yoko for you? We're done here anyway. Rinko wore an expression of profound understanding. I get it now. You're playing hard to get. Trying to make Yoko jealous, right? She continued, rattling on. Do you have to be like this? Yoko was good enough to you to accept your gifts. That was your chance. Besides, it was all agreed at the birthday party that if you behaved yourself and confessed again, she'd consider it. Isn't that enough? Before she could finish, you impatiently waved her away. All right, I have no interest in hearing this. I need to study with my girlfriend. Your eyes turned cold as you issued a blunt dismissal. Do yourselves a favor and go back to your own seats before the teacher gets here instead of squawking like birds. Amidst this intense standoff, Seina Kiyokawa calmly continued working through her practice test. Yoko took a deep breath, completely unable to process your change in attitude. In her subconscious mind, you were simply a dog she could summon or dismiss at will. Only she had the right to reject you. How dare you reject her? Her face tight with anger, she pointed straight at Seina Kiyokawa. This is your last chance. Get away from this filthy girl and apologize to me properly, understand? You looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Yoko, do you have way too much free time? You sighed helplessly. If you're that bored, go run a few laps around the athletic field and show off your collarbone. I'm sure some underclassmen will hit on you. Yoko lost her composure entirely, staring at you in utter disbelief. What did you just say? Your gaze was bone-chillingly cold. Yoko, trailing behind you all this time was partly because of my old man, and partly because I was just plain blind. Now I'm officially telling you. I'm cutting ties with your little circle for good. All I feel toward you is disgust. Those words hit Yoko like a heavy sledgehammer to the chest. Flying into a rage, out of sheer habit, she raised her hand to deliver a vicious slap right across your face in front of the entire class. However, the old you who used to take the blows and insults without fighting back caught her wrist mid-swing. Yutomoku, you jerk! Yoko shrieked with tears in her eyes. I'm calling my dad right now! You're gonna pay for this! You showed zero mercy, giving her a powerful shove that sent her crashing straight into the desk behind her with a loud thud. Rage flared in your eyes with a predatory intensity. Go ahead and call whoever you want. To be completely honest with you, I have already broken ties with him. My living allowance has been cut off. Yoko was completely stunned. Having lived a life of pampered privilege, nobody had ever dared defy her. Yet now, right in front of everyone, the lapdog who used to be most obedient to her had turned around and bitten her hard. She couldn't understand it. Just days ago, you were following her orders to humiliate Seina Kiyokawa before confessing to her. How did the humiliation scheme backfire into the two of you mocking her instead? Yoko straightened her clothes. You really think you're someone special now? She snapped her head around to glare at Seina Kiyokawa, who was quietly working. What did you say to Yuto? Seina Kiyokawa didn't even bother lifting her head, finding this entire farce entirely too noisy. Seina Kiyokawa's silent dismissal completely ignited Yoko's fury. She marched up to the desk and reached out to rip up the test papers lying on top. But at that exact moment, an iron grip hand seized her wrist. Her body stiffened as she snapped her head up, meeting your blazing eyes. 2 beams of icy fury shot out as you warned her word for word. If you dare pull another stunt like that, I will throw you out of this window. Let go! Yoko had never seen you look this terrifying. She had zero doubt that if she dared touch Seina Kiyokawa right now, you would genuinely hurl her out of the classroom. Had this guy completely lost his mind? Just days ago, he was pounding his chest and swearing to ruthlessly humiliate Seina Kiyokawa. How did they turn into sworn enemies overnight? The next second, you roughly shoved Yoko aside, pointed straight at the bridge of her nose, and roared, I told you to get lost. I am her boyfriend now. If I hear another word against her from your mouth, don't expect me to be polite. Yoko's face flushed red and white before she forced out a disdainful scoff. Let's see how long you can keep up this act. She stomped back to her seat while a few curious male classmates tried to approach for details, only to be blasted back by your glare. Class is starting. What are you barking about? Meanwhile, out of the corner of her eye, Seina Kiyokawa glanced at your gauze-wrapped left hand, where a bright red stain seemed to be seeping through more vividly. Seeing that everyone had quieted down, you sat back down in your chair and carefully peeled back the gauze. The wound that had just begun scabbing over last night had torn open again, and fresh blood was slowly oozing out. You winced in pain. Well, this is a mess. Breaking away from your old clique meant you were likely to become the next target for bullying. If it came to physical altercations, this hand injury would be a fatal disadvantage. Suddenly, a much more severe realization hit you. This injury was originally supposed to happen to Seina Kiyokawa's palm. Because you forced her to the hospital, it had ended up on your hand instead. Did this mean no matter what you did, the destined events would still occur? Except now, the target of the bullying had become you. While you sat there in a daze, Seina Kiyokawa noticed you staring fixedly at your palm. She put down her pen, unsure of what to say, and simply offered a cold remark. You brought this on yourself. With complete detachment, she analyzed. Picking a fight with Yoko means cutting ties with everyone in your old circle. I genuinely don't understand what's wrong with you. Is something wrong with your head? You looked at her with a bewildered expression. What's wrong with my head? You think this is low? I'm your boyfriend now, we're on the same side. She tried to mess with you, so isn't it normal for me to step in? Seina Kiyokawa offered a cold sneer. Last night you said you'd never be caught dead dating a poor, miserable wretch like me, and now you've flipped the script. I think you really do need to see a psychiatrist. Her tone was glacial as she threw your own words right back in your face. You swallowed hard, dropping any pretense of pride as you mumbled. Fine, my head isn't right, so I'm just flipping back and forth. We're a match made in heaven. Seina Kiyokawa refused to buy it at all. Do you think toying with me like this is fun, Yuto? There's really no need. I'm just a broke student with nothing to my name, not worth you going to such elaborate lengths for amusement. Yet you grinned brightly. You guessed it. I'm planning to play this role for the rest of my life. I'm going to study hard from now on. Right as you spoke, Seina Kiyokawa's deskmate scurried over, took one look at you, the school bully, sitting in her seat, and could only retreat in defeat to the back row. However, Seina Kiyokawa's face remained taut, and her voice bone-chillingly cold. I advise you to go back. The head teacher already has a massive target on your back. You always hand in blank exam papers anyway. If you sit next to me now, she's definitely going to tear into you. At the thought of the bespectacled, menopause-stricken homeroom teacher, the corners of your mouth twitched. But the next second, you shrugged off the concern and pulled out yesterday's assignment. So I get chewed out, it's not like it's the first time. You laid out the math test paper simply because Seina Kiyokawa was working on that exact one. Watching her write down an answer, you leaned your large head right over, practically pressing your face against her paper to peek at her work. After reading it, you muttered aloud, I knew it was A, I'm such a genius. Seina Kiyokawa was annoyed to the point of almost laughing. Why don't you just stop writing? I've never even seen you turn in homework before. You gasped in delighted exaggeration. I knew you were always paying attention to me. Even noticing that, she finally lost her temper and fired back a sarcastic remark. "Did you forget what you told me before? Does young Master Moku need to study?" You abruptly recalled the scene of your confession being rejected back then, when you had pointed at her nose in blind fury and yelled, "What's the use of studying? I can make plenty of money without studying. Look at your pathetic, poverty-stricken face." Gazing at Seina Kiyokawa's half-mocking, inscrutable expression, you gave her a fierce glare. "I'm turning over a new leaf now." Looking thoroughly stubborn, you flipped the math test over, picked the shortest option among the multiple-choice questions, scribbled a random number for the fill-in-the-blanks, and simply copied the problem statement for the essay question. While everyone else spent over an hour agonizing over the test, you finished in 5 minutes and proudly handed it to her to inspect. Seina Kiyokawa glanced at it for a split second. The paper was covered in chicken-scratch handwriting. Even the multiple-choice questions didn't have a single right answer, yet you remained completely oblivious, assuming she was stunned by your productivity, and grinned smugly. "I usually just don't study, but once I put my mind to it, getting a perfect score is a walk in the park. Now you know my true power, right? Are you impressed?" Seina Kiyokawa delivered a chilling verdict. If this test paper were used as a negative example, it would still be considered misleading to students. Faced with such mockery, you unashamedly scratched the back of your head. "Thanks for the compliment." Seina Kiyokawa was utterly speechless, lowering her head to resume her work. But you refused to stay quiet, letting out a soft whistle. "Since you praised me, I should praise you back." Seina Kiyokawa shot you a freezing, sidelong glare and uttered 2 icy words. "Shut up." You looked full of eager anticipation. "It's in a foreign language, too. Want to hear it?" She finally put down her pen with visible irritation. "If saying it means you'll shut your mouth, then go ahead." You cleared your throat and shouted in a bizarre accent, "Hello there, flower girl." Instantly, Seina Kiyokawa's face turned as dark as a cast-iron skillet. She genuinely wished she had a ball of cotton to stuff straight down your throat. Just then, a sharp shout echoed from the doorway. "Class is in session!" The math teacher, Junko-san, marched up to the podium clutching her lesson plan. Having finished her reprimand, she picked up a piece of chalk, suddenly remembered something, spun around and barked, "Yuto Moku!" You immediately straightened your posture. "Here, is the 8th row too small for your grand presence? Why did you move up to the front?" Scattered chuckles rippled through the classroom, but you didn't even blink. "Teacher son, isn't the university entrance exam coming up soon? I figured I'd try studying hard for once." Junko-san exposed you in front of everyone. "I don't even want to point out your little scheme. Can you stop being a plague to decent students?" Seina Kiyokawa is an elite student aiming for Tokyo University, while certain shameless parasites are just dragging the whole class down. Junko-san strode right up to your desk and glared at you with burning hostility. Then she flipped open your 5-minute wonder test paper. With a sharp snap, she ripped it into confetti right in front of the whole class with fluid motion. "Get back to your 8th row nap spot." You spread your hands in helpless resignation, tilted your head, and gave a roguish smile to the expressionless Seina Kiyokawa. "I'll be back." Never in your wildest dreams did you expect Junko-san to catch that remark. She violently hurled a piece of chalk straight at your back, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Get back here!" Why didn't you use scissors to cut your own arteries yesterday instead of playing the victim to threaten an innocent girl? Have you no shame left at all? Those words struck the classroom like a heavy hammer, causing the entire room to erupt into a boiling uproar. Everyone pointed and whispered about the gauze on your left hand while Seina Kiyokawa gripped her ballpoint pen tightly, drawing circle after circle on her test paper. Teacher Sun managed to turn back around, a flash of menacing coldness in her eyes. She glanced over at Seina Kiyokawa, but you suddenly flashed a grin. "Teacher, your newly done gel manicure looks great." Her lesson planner slammed heavily onto the desk as Junko-san shook with fury. "You are a completely hopeless delinquent. Don't think your father's donations give you the right to do whatever you want. He already spoke with me on the phone yesterday. If push comes to shove, we'll just suspend you. Even Yuto Moku's father has given up on you. You're just garbage born without a mother to raise you." The moment those words left her mouth, the tip of Seina Kiyokawa's ballpoint pen abruptly punctured straight through her test paper. "Teacher," her face turned dark as her expression grew immensely vicious. "If you keep talking, I'm afraid you'll need to get those nails redone." Junko-san flew into an instant rage. What did you just say? Repeat that. I said you foo. But right at that moment, with a sharp scrape, a third person stood up in the classroom. None other than Seina Kiyokawa. With her head bowed in absolute silence, she gathered her books. Amidst the incredulous gasps of the entire class, she quietly walked back and took a seat in the 8th row. As she brushed past you, she muttered under her breath, "If you're going to throw a tantrum in class, go see your psychiatrist." You swallowed the rest of the profanity back down and sat right down beside Seina Kiyokawa. Homeroom teacher Junko-sun finished the rest of the period consumed by towering rage, entirely unable to fathom how her most obedient student could possibly fall this far. Seina Kiyokawa was quietly packing her stationery. You scratched your head and tried to make conversation, mustering what you thought was a gentle voice. Was your brain beaten by a brick or something? Get your ass back to your seat, you're ruining my nap here. Seina Kiyokawa shot you a sideways glance, her voice deadpan. Who was the one saying they wanted to study hard just a moment ago? I can study just fine even if you leave. Moku-san, where I sit is none of my business. Wait, none of your business. Seina Kiyokawa shot back without a trace of politeness. I just don't want some lunatic disrupting classroom discipline. And another thing, I certainly don't feel an ounce of guilt for stabbing you yesterday. You brought all of this entirely upon yourself. You deserved it. Seeing you get chewed out by the teacher actually makes me quite happy. What did you say? You felt like if you were still 18, you could pick a physical fight with her in a heartbeat. I'm not going to tell you a second time. Seina Kiyokawa pulled out a practice test, put her head down, and went straight to work. You could only mutter under your breath, "There's definitely something wrong with your head." Who would have thought she'd hear it and fire right back without missing a beat? Your mind is the one that's messed up. The rest of the class finally settled into peace. Before long, noon arrived. The other students rushed eagerly toward the cafeteria. Only Seina Kiyokawa remained behind. She took out her bento box, intending to head to the water dispenser for some hot water to soak her plain rice. She had rushed out in such a hurry this morning that she hadn't even brought pickled vegetables. But just as she bent down to fill her container, Romo from the neighboring class suddenly appeared at the classroom doorway, holding a thick, heavy lunchbox. My mother packed me way too much food today. Let's eat lunch together. Before Seina Kiyokawa could even open her mouth, you stood up from your desk with a menacing aura. You barked loudly. Is your skin itching for another beating? Romo shrank back in a sudden flinch, but then he mustered his courage and snapped back tit for tat. Moku-san, I heard you use despicable tactics to threaten Kiyokawa. I might not be able to beat you in a fight, but you're only using violence to make yourself feel important. I'm not afraid of you at all, Big Mouth. Using your right hand to tap your left elbow, you strode right up to Romo, glaring down at him from your superior height. Casually reaching onto a nearby desk, you grabbed a pair of drafting compasses and displayed the sharp metal tip right in front of him. I've got a proposal. Let's have a contest. We both pierce our own arms with this needle. Whoever pulls it out first loses. The loser has to pack up and get the hell out of this classroom right now. What do you say? Romo gritted his teeth and stood there, too terrified to utter a sound. To his utter shock, you didn't hesitate for a second, driving the compass directly into your own elbow as fresh blood immediately spurted out. Yet you didn't care in the least, asking with a chilling smile, "Your turn." Romo turned as pale as a ghost and bolted out of the room. At that exact moment, Seina Kiyokawa rushed over to you and snatched the blood-stained compass right out of your hand. Not everyone is a complete lunatic like you. That label of lunatic instantly spiked your irritation. You stared wide-eyed at her for a long moment before finally squeezing out, "I'm starving." Seina Kiyokawa pointed straight toward the doorway. The cafeteria is right over there, though I'd suggest you go get that bleeding stopped first. But you stood your ground with absolute confidence. Right now, I want to go grab a bite to eat with my girlfriend. Sound good? That finally reminded Seina Kiyokawa of last night's agreement. She was technically your girlfriend on paper. Gritting her teeth, she spat out, "I brought my own lunch. You didn't bring enough, and that's none of my business." Seina Kiyokawa pressed her lips into a tight line, ignored you entirely, and sat back down at her desk to open her container of soaked white rice. But right as she was about to take a bite, a figure flashed directly in front of her. You brazenly snatched up her lunchbox and polished off the water-soaked rice in 2 or 3 huge gulps. Seina Kiyokawa was struck dumb with shock. Have you completely lost your mind? Since I just ate your lunch, courtesy demands I return the favor. It's my turn to treat you to a meal. Without waiting for a reply, You grabbed her by the sleeve and dragged her straight toward the school gates. "What on earth are you doing?" Seina Kiyokawa started struggling in annoyance. "I didn't get enough to eat." You forcibly locked your grip around her wrist. At that exact moment, you suddenly remembered what Aunt Pang had mentioned yesterday. Seina Kiyokawa's digestive system was in terrible shape, and she was suffering from severe malnutrition. That was precisely why you were dragging her out to get some proper food. You knew very well that she was an exceptionally sensitive person, with an overwhelming sense of pride. Given the massive scene that had just occurred, she would never agree to follow you into the school cafeteria in plain view of everyone. The two of you tugged and pulled as you made your way out of the school grounds. The March weather had finally started warming up. Amidst the physical pulling, your clothes brushed against her body. Yet her body temperature was shockingly low. So low it hardly felt human for an 18-year-old girl. It felt like hugging a block of ice through a layer of cotton cloth. You led her down a side alley beside the school, where a plastic-sheeted food stall was set up. The owner was busy tossing a wok while the gas burner roared like a jet engine's exhaust. It was a local fried noodle joint, cheap and hearty. Spicy hot pot was far too fiery. Seina Kiyokawa definitely couldn't handle that. But a piping hot plate of fried noodles bursting with the aroma of the wok, mixed with shredded cabbage, eggs, and minced meat, was something she would surely enjoy. Once seated, you immediately yelled out to the vendor, "Boss, 2 plates of fried noodles, and an extra 500 yen worth of meat and eggs." "Coming right up," the owner shouted back in a gruff voice. Yet, after sitting down, Seina Kiyokawa kept her head bowed in absolute silence. Even when the fragrant plate of noodles was placed right in front of her, she didn't touch her chopsticks. You couldn't help teasing her as you ate. "You might hate my guts, but you've got no grudge against fried noodles, right? Besides, a plate of noodles isn't going to bankrupt you." Seina Kiyokawa finally swallowed a burst of saliva and couldn't resist picking up her chopsticks. Even when starving, she maintained immaculate table manners. She chewed slowly and deliberately, her lips brushing lightly against each bite while a pair of adorable dimples faintly appeared on her cheeks. But right at that moment, a group of laughing, rowdy youths strolled past the plastic canopy. The leader, sporting a flashy perm, cast a suspicious glance your way. And the next second, he lifted the vinyl flap and stepped right inside. "Hey bro, what brings you eating at a dump like this?" The guy glanced over at Seina Kiyokawa, who was picking up her noodles, and scoffed. "I heard the guys in our circle talking about it and didn't believe it, but you really went and hooked up with the school ice queen, huh?" You recognized the guy instantly. He was the local hoodlum of First High, Yugo Yuki, a heavily connected rich kid. If things had gone the way they did in your past life, you'd be standing right alongside him, smoking and cutting loose outside. But having been reborn, you chose instead to bring Seina Kiyokawa out for a proper meal. In the eyes of these young scions, Seina Kiyokawa was decent looking, but she was just a poor, stuck-up pauper putting on airs. As you sat pondering, Yugo Yuki let out a scoff through his nose. "Not bad, pulling off a real flex. You actually managed to land the school's ice queen. I guess I lost that bet to you. Come by my place tonight to pick up your car keys." A single bean sprout fell from Seina Kiyokawa's chopsticks onto the table. She paused for a single second, silently picked it back up to her mouth, lowered her gaze, and kept chewing. Your chest tightened with an uncomfortable pang. "Hey man, I already cleared things up with Yoko this morning. I'm not going to be hanging out with you guys anymore. Let's part ways on good terms." But Yugo Yuki just chuckled dismissively. "Cut the crap, bring your girl, and be there tonight sharp." You refused him once more. "Seriously man, it's too dangerous." Yugo Yuki stared at you with a strange look in his eye. "Did you eat something bad today? Stop acting all wishy-washy like a girl. It's settled." Your patience was running thin, and your tone hardened. "After spending a night at the police station yesterday, I realized a lot. From now on, I'm not going out partying at night." Having been rejected repeatedly in front of all his cronies, Yugo Yuki started losing face. "What is wrong with you? Who are you trying to put on an act for in front of us? Got a girl and suddenly you're too good for your brothers?" He pointed a finger straight at Seina Kiyokawa, who was quietly eating. "I distinctly remember you cursing her out yesterday, calling her some miserable beggar. What changed?" You fell silent instantly, a wave of internal struggle washing over your features as if recalling some immense trauma. Then, you spoke up again, looking as though you had made a monumental decision. "I'm not messing around anymore, guys. From now on, I'm gonna be a good student, study hard with my girlfriend, and make it into university together. Yugo Yuki stared for a second before bursting into loud laughter, followed instantly by a chorus of jeers from his lackeys behind him. It sounded like the funniest joke in the world. Did my ears go bad? You? Studying? You couldn't even scrape together a fraction of the passing score for Tokyo University. And you're telling me you're going to hit the books? To your credit, you laughed along with them until tears almost came to your eyes. You've got to try, right? There's a saying about loving the house and everyone in it. My girlfriend is a straight-A student, so my grades are bound to skyrocket with her help. Yugo Yuki laughed so hard he had to double over, slapping the table violently while his small-time thugs hooted and hollered. But right then, Seina Kiyokawa slammed her chopsticks down and spoke in an icy tone. Are you people ever going to let anyone eat in peace? You and Yugo Yuki stopped laughing simultaneously. His expression flickered between mockery and annoyance, while your face remained entirely calm and detached. You really know how to keep up the act, Yugo Yuki straightened up, narrowing his eyes. Like, I don't know what kind of person you are, Moku. You're dropping serious cash on this little romance stunt. Picking fights with Yoko and putting on an act for the boys. He looked Seina Kiyokawa up and down. So this chick is pretty and gets good grades. Big deal. If you're that desperate for a girl, just mess around with her for a bit and toss her. Your tone became dead serious. I'm not blowing smoke, guys. I'm genuinely dating Kiyokawa. I acted like a complete bastard before, but I'm going to make it up to her properly from now on. Seina Kiyokawa, who had been on the verge of standing up, paused at your sincere tone, gave you a bewildered look, and quietly sat back down. Fine, whatever you say. Yugo Yuki cut you off impatiently. Keep playing your game if you want. Looks like this chick really has you wrapped around her finger? Right as he finished speaking, a hoodlum named Shinji chimed in with a snicker. What's so great about this chick anyway? Does she even make a peep when you're with her? Or does she just sit there stiff as a dead fish with a poker face? The others broke into provocative whistles aimed at Seina Kiyokawa. You snapped your gaze towards Seina Kiyokawa. Her expression had instantly frozen over like a sheet of bitter ice. A jolt shot through your heart, because in your past life, it was Yoko and a pack of these exact punks who bullied Seina Kiyokawa until the gauze on her palm ripped open, exposing bloody, torn skin. All the karmic retribution of this lifetime seemed to be funneling straight back at you. You roared with sudden fury. You've got a death wish, don't you? The next second, you leaped to your feet and shoved Yugo Yuki hard out of the way. He crashed straight onto the ground. Without missing a beat, you grabbed Shinji by the collar and pulled your arm back. Shinji's nose instantly started bleeding as he went down with a heavy thud, throwing the whole place into absolute chaos. Meanwhile, Seina Kiyokawa calmly picked up her unfinished plate of noodles and quietly retreated to the corner. You lunged forward, stomping your foot down hard onto the chest of a thug on your left and letting him shriek on the floor. Ignoring fists and kicks raining down from both sides, you let out a roar, mounted straight on top of Shinji, locked your fists together, and swung down fiercely. What kind of big shot do you think you are? Bam! You drove your fist into his face, smashing his cheekbone inward amidst his continuous shrieks. But right then, a thug behind you threw his arm around your neck in a chokehold, hissing, "Listen here, punk, don't push your luck." You slowly forced yourself back to your feet, reaching up to pry his fingers away one by one with sheer brute force. Amidst his shrieks of agony, his fingers began to warp with a sickening cracking sound, yet he kept his grip locked onto you. At that exact moment, an iron pipe whistled through the air straight toward your face. You didn't hesitate for a fraction of a second, jerking backward while dragging the thug along with you, and smashed your gauze-wrapped left hand directly into the attacker's wrist. Clang. The iron pipe clattered onto the ground. Amidst the roaring din, Yugo Yuki's chilling voice echoed quietly. That's enough. The 5 thugs who had been ganging up on you instantly froze, stepping back to stand in a disciplined line. As for Seina Kiyokawa, she calmly walked over, picked up a takeout box, and began packing away the rest of her noodles. Yugo Yuki didn't say a word, just surveying the injuries of his underlings one by one. He finally spoke up. Moku, Shinji was out of line running his mouth, and he deserved a beating, but I've always treated you right. You just threw me to the ground like that. How are we going to settle this? You turned your head toward Yugo Yuki, your voice dropping to an icy chill. Sorry, Yuki narrowed his eyes. Just like that? What else do you want? You asked back with a sinister sneer. Want me to get on my knees and apologize? Looks like you really got your brain fried by that chick. Yuki's face turned livid. I'm gonna make sure you can't keep acting this crazy after today. Suddenly, a cold female voice pierced through the air. Officer, there's a gang fight happening over here. It was Seina Kiyokawa. Another young woman in uniform shouted sternly, You kids, stop right there. The sound of running footsteps instantly broke Yuki's momentum. His face dropped, and his thugs scrambled into the depths of the alley, vanishing in seconds. You took a long breath, lowered your head, and lifted the curtain to prepare for police questioning. But the moment you looked down, what filled your field of vision was a pair of hands as delicate as orchid petals. Those same hands were still holding a box of packed fried noodles. Outside, the young woman stared at Moku. You're gonna have to compensate the noodle shop owner, aren't you? Not a chance. The girl frowned slightly. At that moment, you couldn't help thinking she looked a bit like Shishi knitting her brows in distress. 3,000 yen? You think I'm easy to shake down? You pointed right at his nose. It's just a few plastic stools. What are they made of, solid gold? The owner, never having dealt with such an aggressive ruffian, stammered nervously. Oh, my customers ran off. The afternoon rush is ruined. You've got to give me at least 2,000. Inside the plastic tent, you maintained your brazen attitude. Seina Kiyokawa kept her eyes glued to your back the entire time. In the past, her cowardly self always fantasized about having a friend stand up for her and shoulder her grievances. That wish had come true once before, only to be torn to bloody shreds yesterday. She still remembered when you brought her breakfast in the past, and she had eaten while asking, Why are you being so nice to me? Is there something you want? Back then, the boy had just frowned and replied, Is this supposed to be nice? Your life must be way too miserable then. Besides, friends do stuff like this. Seeing you satisfied makes me happy too. Back then, she had felt a momentary sorrow, though her face showed zero expression. After getting home, she opened her diary, carefully drew a smiling face and noted, Today is my lucky day. Someone cared about me again. If only last night's events had never happened, how wonderful that would be. Even though Seina Kiyokawa knew you were up to no good, she still walked into the trap like a moth to a flame. Earlier, she had tried to map out her relationships, placing you and Romo on the list as important future companions in life. But after last night, her deep-seated hypersensitivity and paranoia took the wheel again. She couldn't adapt to your sudden change. It felt terrifying. So terrifying she couldn't bring herself to trust it. Seina Kiyokawa didn't have much left to lose. Last night, she lost you, leaving only her grandmother and Romo. But now you had completely shattered your old image, acting like a reckless punk, forcefully squeezing your way back into her world and turning everything upside down. She still resented you deeply. This was probably just another one of your cruel little games. Seina Kiyokawa gripped her lunchbox tighter, her knuckles turning pale from the surging anxiety. Want it or not, out of sheer frustration and anger, you dug 5 red banknotes out of your pocket and tossed them straight onto the owner. I'll shoot straight with you. This is all the cash I've got on me right now. If you want more, too bad. Otherwise, we can all head down to the police station to make statements. Let me be clear, that guy who was fighting me is Yuki. If you call the cops and drag him in, I guarantee you won't even be able to keep this food stall open. With that, you stormed toward the exit. Just as you grabbed Seina Kiyokawa's sleeve, you seemed to remember something else, dashed back into the tent, and caused another round of clatter and shouting. When you came back out, you were holding 2 drinks, a bottled milk drink and a cold iced tea. You shoved the unblemished bottle toward Yumi, grumbling, What a massive ripoff. Seeing that she didn't reach out, you simply planted the drink right on top of her lunchbox. Take it! It's already been paid for. Then, worried she'd think you were being a bully, you quickly explained, The guy doesn't even make 1,000 yen a day anyway. What's wrong with me taking 2 drinks? Hurry up and walk with me. What if Yuki comes back? Yet Seina Kiyokawa's hand holding the drink was trembling slightly. She sighed. Moku-san, what is it? She replied coldly. You don't need to try and make up for anything. I don't need it. I'm never gonna like you. Stay away from me from now on. Hearing those words didn't send you into the blind rage she had anticipated. You simply lifted your chin, letting the sunlight wash over your face, then curved the corners of your mouth into a gentle smile. Are you still angry? I can apologize properly, any way you want. I've been regretting it all day yesterday. Seina Kiyokawa cut you off flatly. Apologize for what? It was my own fault for having such foolish expectations. You didn't do anything wrong. We live in two completely different worlds. Instead of watching you turn everything upside down, we might as well end it now. If you insist on liking a cynical girl like me, I can introduce you to someone else. Hearing that genuinely stung your heart, but you still asserted stubbornly, no matter how much you try to hurt my feelings, I know you still care about me. With that, you stepped forward and pulled her by the sleeve straight toward the school gates, ignoring all her resistance. To your surprise, she didn't get angry, just looking at you with a dazed expression. Moku-san, you're gonna regret this sooner or later. I'll wait to watch the show, you grinned nonchalantly. As long as you're happy, what does it matter if I play the fool? Back in the classroom, you threw any pretense of studying out the window and slammed your head down to sleep. Originally, nobody bothered you, but since Seina Kiyokawa was sitting right there in the 8th row, the teacher's gaze naturally gravitated toward the area. It was chemistry class. The skin and bones teacher roared in anger, pointing a nicotine-stained finger straight at the 8th row. You in the back, stand up! You were still smacking your lips, clearly not fully awake, causing the whole class to burst into raucous laughter. Even the girls in the front row smirked, especially Yoko, who shot a cold sneer in your direction. The chemistry teacher raised his eyelids, though not too surprised. Can't answer, right? He continued. Where were we in the textbook? Feeling utterly awkward, you could only cast a pleading look at the honor student sitting right next to you, Seina Kiyokawa. Yet she kept a completely blank expression, refusing to budge. Left with no choice, you used every limb available, first bumping her chair with your knee, then reaching over to nudge her textbook. Seina Kiyokawa finally gave in out of annoyance, scribbling a few words in her notebook. You leaned in close and read it out loud immediately. Fermat's lemma. You had no clue what nonsense that was, but you firmly believed the honor student beside you wouldn't steer you wrong. The chemistry teacher paused for a second before offering a cold sneer. Looks like Moku-san is an elite student now, starting on higher math already. Stand up for the rest of the period to wake yourself up. Bursts of laughter erupted across the room. You awkwardly scratched the back of your head and vented your frustration by poking Seina Kiyokawa's cheek, whispering back, "Didn't you say you wanted to study hard?" When the final bell finally rang, you squatted down to massage your aching knees from standing so long. Seina Kiyokawa was packing up her books next to you, getting ready to head home. You immediately sidled up. My girlfriend, where are we heading? She didn't even lift her head. You put on a cheeky grin. I'm starving. Let's go grab dinner together. She rejected you once more. I'm going home. Knowing full well how stubborn she was, you quickly switched to a pitiful expression. My fried noodles got knocked over at noon. I'm practically running on empty. You've got to keep me company for dinner. Seina Kiyokawa tilted her head and shot you a sidelong glance. Didn't you run out of cash? Better sort out your basic survival first, lest you end up sleeping on the streets later. You immediately patted your chest in reassurance. Don't you worry about money. I've been planning to split from my old man since I was a kid, so I've saved up a decent stash. Combined with the bank book my mother left me, I'm completely fine for now. You knew very well that every time you got beaten up, you wanted to run away from that house. Come to think of it, you had Seina Kiyokawa to thank for giving you the push you needed, because otherwise, you never would have had the guts. With that, you grabbed Seina Kiyokawa's hand and pulled her along the stream of students exiting the school. Outside the gates, you tried to hold her hand, but the moment your fingers brushed hers, she violently shook you off. The barrier between you two was as thick and hazy as the fog trapped inside the vintage wristwatch on your wrist. From that day onward, your daily routine became rigidly structured. Sleep during class, brush off Romo whenever he tried to stick to you like bubblegum, and drag Seina Kiyokawa out of school for meals. The noodle stall owner in the alley turned pale every single time he saw you arrive, terrified that the hoodlums would come back to smash up his shop. Though thankfully, that never happened again. Just like that, several peaceful days slipped by. To your surprise, Seina Kiyokawa even slowly grew accustomed to it. Accustomed to having an overbearing guy constantly dragging her out for food, since resisting was completely useless anyway. Perhaps Seina Kiyokawa had simply resigned herself to her fate. Her attitude toward you had softened considerably. Yet as you lay in bed at night, you were terrified out of your mind. Would that dagger that pierced your spine in your past life still show up? Was Seina Kiyokawa still planning to paralyze you from the waist down? At that thought, a wave of intense anxiety washed over you, making the healing blood scab on your left palm itch so badly your whole body crawled as you scratched it over and over. Right at that moment, while you were eating at a fast food joint with Seina Kiyokawa, your elbow gave a sudden shove, sending your food tray sliding and scattering contents all over the floor. You cursed under your breath, squatting down to clean up the mess. Seina Kiyokawa swallowed her food and crouched down right beside you to help. Amidst the cleanup, you abruptly blurted out, "Have you figured out when you're going to strike?" She gripped the tissue tightly in her hand, and you didn't dare look into her eyes, which were welling up with unshed tears, but only for a second before you looked back up with fierce determination. "If you're gonna do it, can you just make it quick? I really don't want a seizure." Seina Kiyokawa abruptly avoided your probing gaze, furrowing her brow in sheer astonishment as she chose to play dumb. "What on earth are you talking about?" "What would I be planning?" Realizing the crux of the matter, you hammered your fists angrily against the tiled floor, yet not a single word came out. The hands you both were using to wipe up the mess with napkins suddenly brushed against each other. Seina Kiyokawa stared at the spot where your hands touched, then suddenly lowered her voice to ask a question that left your mind completely blown. "I figured out what you really want yesterday. Is it true that once you sleep with me, this whole farce will finally be over?" You were stunned at first, but once you grasped the meaning behind her words, you held back your temper and remained silent. To your surprise, seeing you stay quiet caused Seina Kiyokawa's tone to instantly freeze over. "I'll take your silence as a yes then. Having that kind of thought is completely normal, and it fits right in with your weird behavior lately. It's just human nature. No need to get all defensive and fly off the handle." "Normal?" You could no longer hold it in. Under her mocking gaze, your face turned crimson as you leaped to your feet and roared, "I deserve this!" With that, you snatched up your school bag and bolted out the door. In your blinding fury, you charged right into someone just entering the diner, sending them sprawling in all directions and landing flat on their backside. The yelp of pain coming from the person at the entrance sounded instantly familiar to you both. It was none other than Romo. He had walked in with a group of model students and immediately spotted Seina Kiyokawa crouched on the ground, her face as pale as paper and looking fragile enough to shatter at the slightest touch. Without a second thought, Romo rushed over to help her up, grumbling under his breath, "Kiyokawa, I haven't even been able to catch a glimpse of you all these days." Romo immediately shifted into accusation mode. "Did Moku-san bully you again? I've been saying all along that you need to stay away from that guy. He's definitely up to no good and is just putting on an act to trick you." The foot you had just stepped outside the diner pulled back instantly. Seeing Romo reach out to help Seina Kiyokawa made your blood boil with rage. You rushed over to Romo in 2 or 3 strides and grabbed him firmly by the wrist. "What kind of nonsense are you babbling about? My girlfriend, I'll help her up myself. Keep your filthy hands off." Your next sentence slammed into his ears like a physical blow. "And another thing, I don't like other people calling my girlfriend Kiyokawa. Clean up your mouth before you speak. Call her Seina-san or Moku's girlfriend. Do we understand each other?" With that, you shoved Romo's hand away, grabbed Seina Kiyokawa, and pulled her toward the exit, barking a harsh warning at her. "That guy is total scum. Stay far away from him from now on, understand?" Seina Kiyokawa winced in pain as you dragged her along, her brows furrowed tightly together. But right at that moment, Romo's voice rang out from behind you. "Moku-san, if you really liked Kiyokawa the way you claim," you whipped your head around, your eyes locked onto him with a fierce glare. For a long time in your wheelchair, you had let your mind wander endlessly. Romo's family life was happy and full of warmth, which made him recklessly generous with his goodwill, eager to infect everyone around him. Just like his parents' unconditional love for him, he had boundaries that blurred in the days ahead as he cared for Seina Kiyokawa. So much so that when Seina Kiyokawa was devastated by Moku-san's brutal assault, she was able to slowly crawl out of the shadows, only for him to deal her another crushing blow right when she needed warmth the most. In a way, the two of them weren't all that different. Both had caught Seina Kiyokawa's falling soul, only to personally sever the lifeline before the dawn of true redemption could arrive. The only difference was that one was a sudden, sharp shock, while the other was a slow, agonizing erosion that dragged on forever. In countless sleepless nights, you had also wondered why Seina Kiyokawa agreed to your confession at the birthday banquet. Until the day you died, you couldn't understand how a delinquent bully, with nothing going for him except a bit of attitude, could suddenly drop into the life of a scarred girl, capture her attention, and somehow stir her ice-cold heart. It took Romo a full 6 years of constant companionship to thaw Seina Kiyokawa's defenses, whereas you had managed it in just half a year. By what, right? Simply because you rudely forced your way into her world? What you didn't know was that Seina Kiyokawa and you were actually cut from the exact same cloth. Accustomed to emotional coldness and realizing that every interaction came with a hidden agenda, your nightmares were filled with your father towering above you, while her memories were haunted by the back of her mother disappearing just before the balcony jump. The sharp, deeply suspicious girl recognized that the two of you were kindred spirits, beasts torn to shreds by countless wounds, so she tried to accept it, even harboring a shred of hope to help you. In a way, it was her way of helping herself, accepting herself, and finding a path out of the shadows. But that prior attempt had already been completely crushed by you at the birthday banquet. Your mind was a chaotic mess, and the mounting frustration made your temper flare. Ignoring her struggles, you locked your grip tightly around Seina Kiyokawa's hand and sneered, "That's right, I am this selfish, the kind of bastard who drags others down to hell with him. Let me make this clear. Stay away from us from now on. Otherwise, whenever I'm in a bad mood, I'll beat you every single time I see you." Seina Kiyokawa's right hand was firmly held by Moku-san's left hand. When she instinctively tried to pull away, her fingers brushed against the rough blood scab on his palm. Her body went rigid, and she said nothing more. The two of them walked out of the diner together, but Romo refused to quit like a persistent ghost, rushing out to try and grab Seina Kiyokawa's arm once more. Yet, hesitating for a moment as he caught sight of your tyrannical presence, he pulled his hand back. You had already reached your boiling point and yelled out, "You're seriously asking for a beating." With that, you spun around, grabbed Romo by the collar, clenched your fist, and pulled your arm back. That guy Romo always thought he was doing the right thing while pulling boneheaded stunts. Unwilling to take responsibility, yet stirring up trouble for no reason, and now trying to step on your head to play the hero. Romo turned as pale as a sheet of paper under the furious man's glare, but the model students who came with him started squawking, "Moku-san, stop acting so high and mighty." What on earth did Romo do wrong? Your tyrannical days are numbered anyway. I heard Yugo Yuki is rounding people up to deal with you, and Yoko is out to get you too. Right now, you're just a rat crossing the street that everyone wants to whack. Romo chimed in right on cue. That's right, the college entrance exams are right around the corner. Look at yourself. How could you possibly stay with Seina-san? You're just gonna drag her down. You let out a cold laugh. What I want to do is none of your business. I'm gonna stick by Kiyokawa, so what are you gonna do about it? If anything, Romo's naive self-righteousness almost made you laugh out of pure exasperation. Go back home and drink your milk, good little boy. The group continued to berate you. Normally, these model students wouldn't dare, but because you had become a collective outcast, they felt a sense of riding a wave of popular sentiment, which gave them a sudden surge of courage. Too lazy to entertain them further, you grabbed Seina Kiyokawa by the arm and started to pull her away. But just as the two of you took a step, you felt a tug on your left hand. Looking back, you saw Seina Kiyokawa's other hand being held by Romo. He looked at you with stubborn persistence. What's it gonna take for you to leave Kiyokawa alone? Are you ever gonna quit? You spun around, grabbed Romo by the collar, slammed him hard against the wall, and raised your fist with a furious glare. If I don't draw some blood today, I swear my whole body's gonna itch. Seeing the murderous look on your face, Seina Kiyokawa caught a fleeting glimpse of the shadow of arguments she used to have with her father. Rushing between the two of you, she grabbed your raised fist and pleaded softly, "Stop getting mad, please." She figured you wouldn't listen to her. After all, back at the police station entrance, she had only waited until his emotional storm subsided a bit before speaking up. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dared provoke him when he was out of control. Yet at that moment, you opened your hand like an obedient child, took a deep breath, and nodded. All right. Seina Kiyokawa took the initiative to reach out, hooked her arm through yours, and led you out of the diner. With her holding your hand, a cozy warmth spread through your chest. Perhaps because it was your first time holding hands, Seina Kiyokawa's fingers felt cool to the touch, smooth like raw jade. Perhaps the ancient phrase ice skin and jade bones referred precisely to this. Or perhaps it was because the girl had always been ice cold toward her, and this was the first time she had spoken to you in such a pleading tone. Under the influence of such a sweet, honeyed voice, who could possibly refuse? Truly worthy of being the school belle, that voice was standard issue for a sweet-type girl. If she had lived a normal life to match those honey-sweet dimples, you were certain Seina Kiyokawa would be an absolute sweetheart, sweet and soft like a blooming rose. Seina Kiyokawa led you away from the restaurant thinking you were being as docile as a month-old puppy. She stole a sidelong glance at your face. It must take a whole night's worth of ink to paint eyebrows that dark, she thought. This guy actually looks pretty decent when he isn't scowling. Seina Kiyokawa shook her head, deciding her brain really must be malfunctioning just like you said. When you returned to the classroom, you planted your head down in the 8th row for another deep sleep. During the break, Yoko waved at Seina Kiyokawa, signaling her to step outside. Seina Kiyokawa clenched her fists for a brief second before obediently following her out. Just like a pure white sheet of paper, she refused to be treated as a fragile pet, nor did she ever want to be constantly sheltered by someone else. Seina Kiyokawa didn't feel she needed a savior to rescue her. The two of them walked through a few doorways and passed through the fire exit leading toward the gymnasium. Stopping the stairwell landing, Yoko turned around to face Seina Kiyokawa. I heard Moku-san picked a fight with everyone because of you recently. Seina Kiyokawa paused for a moment, tracing back the cause and effect. It seemed that was indeed the case. Yet, she replied coldly, Are you trying to talk me into leaving him? I've already said so several times. Yoko interrupted her with a sneer. Seina Kiyokawa, I don't need you to give up any man. He's nothing more than a dog I chose for myself. Whatever you want is completely worthless in my eyes. Seina Kiyokawa looked at Yoko's flushed, agitated face. Then our conversation ends here. Seina Kiyokawa, Yoko shouted in a low, furious tone, a flash of malice leaking from her eyes. You stop right there. Ever since Seina Kiyokawa transferred to First High, Yoko, who used to boast superior looks and a privileged background, had felt a crushing sense of crisis. Seina Kiyokawa was exceptionally pretty and carried a unique, aloof pride. On the very first day of the morning assembly, the girl had instantly captured everyone's attention, regardless of gender, student, or teacher. The girls would gather in clumps to size her up, wearing an awkward expression, an expression Yoko recognized as feeling inferior because she had seen that exact look on other girls before. The boys constantly fished for excuses to approach her, standing awkwardly and stumbling over their words, wanting to curry favor yet having no clue how to handle Seina Kiyokawa's icy demeanor. That was the sheer power of appearance. Not only were the underclassmen timidly hovering around her, but even boys from her own grade cast lingering glances her way wherever she went, trailing her like sunflowers following the sun. Yoko used to comfort herself by telling herself it was just because Seina Kiyokawa came from a poor family. But seeing the burning, different gazes of her classmates made her realize she was actually knocked down a peg. Because of that, Yoko felt compelled to compete with her in everything. If Seina Kiyokawa ranked first in math, Yoko had to be first in English. If Seina Kiyokawa aced the science composite exam, Yoko had to score full marks in Chinese composition. Even in PE class, if Seina Kiyokawa jumped 1.6 meters in the standing broad jump, Yoko would make damn sure she jumped 1.61. There's nothing for us to talk about. Seina Kiyokawa turned her profile slightly. If this is about Moku-san, all I can tell you is that I'm just as clueless about what's gotten into him as you are. We'll go our separate ways once the exams are over. After a brief thought, she turned back to add, Besides, Moku-san is a human being, not some object. Even if I wanted to, let him go I couldn't. You should be talking to him directly instead of coming after me. Sorry. Yoko laughed out of sheer fury as a wave of pent-up grievance washed over her. You're the one who should be apologizing. You're a thief, a robber. Ever since you showed up, you've stolen everything away. I won't let you get away with this. Seina Kiyokawa stared at her blankly for a second, then turned to head up the stairs. Refusing to let it go, Yoko reached out to grab her. I told you to stop! Seina Kiyokawa gave an impatient flick of her arm, but unexpected friction during Yoko's tugging caused her footing to slip. Losing her balance, she fell backward with a piercing scream, tumbling down the flight of stairs. Seina! Yoko let out a shriek of absolute terror, scrambling clumsily down the steps to drop to her knees beside Seina Kiyokawa and reaching out to shake her. There was no response. In the dim hallway light, Yoko spotted a pool of dark red blood leaking out from beneath Seina Kiyokawa's yellowish-brown hair. Trembling all over, Yoko scrambled back up the stairs, threw one terrified glance at the girl lying in a pool of blood, and fled down the hallway without looking back. After the class bell rang, you noticed Seina Kiyokawa hadn't returned. Skipping class was something that only happened to a delinquent like you. There was no way Seina Kiyokawa would ever do such a thing. After stewing in anxiety for a long time, you finally swallowed your pride and asked the head teacher, Suna Shuyun. But she simply chewed you out before immediately launching into today's test paper review. Right at that moment, Yoko hurried back into the classroom, her body trembling uncontrollably. She hadn't even bothered asking permission to enter. Realizing something was horribly wrong, you sat on pins and needles, your attention completely glued to the red-eyed Yoko. Yoko's desk partner kept whispering to her, but Yoko just shook her head blankly. Yet Moku-san caught a few critical fragments. Seina Kiyokawa, conversation. In that split second, a chilling realization hit you, breeding an unfounded panic in your heart, as if the entire world were tearing apart right in front of you, accompanied by an overwhelming, ethereal sense of helplessness. Smack! Just as Teacher Sun unfolded a test paper on the podium, the students watched you abruptly leap to your feet and stomp furiously toward Yoko's desk. Reaching out, you grabbed her by the collar, just like lifting a scrawny chick. Where is Seina Kiyokawa? Your voice shook violently. Instantly, the classroom fell dead silent. Seeing you erupt on the spot, the math teacher Sun Shuyun picked up a blackboard eraser and hurled it straight at you. Moku-san! I'm warning you. If you pull this crap again, I'm calling the principal. But you whipped your head around and barked, "Shut your mouth!" The bloodthirsty look in your eyes scared the teacher into swallowing hard on the spot. Turning back, you clamped your grip back onto Yoko's throat with lethal force, your arm tightening. I'll ask you one more time. If anything happens to her, you're not walking out of here alive. Under the immense threat, Yoko finally cracked. How should I know? I just asked her out for a chat. Seeing her eyes darting around nervously, you gnashed your teeth in pure fury. I swear I'll end you right now. Terrified out of her wits, Yoko burst into loud sobs. Pounding against your iron vice grip, she shrieked. It was by the stairway in the gym hallway. Who knew she was so clumsy she couldn't even stand straight? Why don't you blame yourself for not listening to me? The next second, you released your grip and bolted straight for the gymnasium, a restricted area where the fire exit doors were kept bolted shut year-round. You sprinted with every ounce of strength you had, slamming open the heavy double doors. To your horror, you saw Seina Kiyokawa collapsed at the foot of the stairs, a pool of dark red blood pooling beneath her head. Your entire body trembled, your legs turning to jelly as you dropped to your knees, carefully cupping her head. You pressed down hard on the wound, but no matter how hard you tried, fresh blood kept seeping through your fingers, staining your future red. That night, Yoko sat surrounded by expensive imported liquor, posing for a picture to post on her moments before tilting back a full cup of cola. Yugo Yuki tried to comfort her by saying Seina Kiyokawa had no power or backing, so taking a tumble down the stairs meant bad luck she had to swallow. A flash of cold malice crossed Yoko's eyes at those words. She wasn't worried about Seina Kiyokawa's life or death. What she was really plotting was how to pin Seina Kiyokawa's fall down the stairs squarely on Moku-san. Yugo Yuki froze on the spot. Just a few days ago, you said as long as he came back, bygones would be bygones. Now you're trying to ruin him? Yoko blinked her eyes. Who told him to grab my clothes in front of all those people? Nobody has ever dared threaten me like that since I was a kid. I'm going to make him regret it. I'll make him crawl back and beg me. She even wanted you and Seina Kiyokawa to drop out together. Yugo Yuki loved stirring up chaos. Wow, you girls really are cold-blooded. I've got a plan. The hallway leading to the gym doesn't have any security cameras. Pay off the custodian with some cash to act as a false witness, claiming they saw you push her with their own eyes. Those are just the groundwork steps. The best part is step 3. They're going to make your precious Seina Kiyokawa turn around and give a personal statement, accusing you of pushing her down the stairs. Yoko thought pulling that off would be tough, but Yugo Yuki was full of confidence. He held up 5 fingers. Give her this much. 500,000. That girl you hold so dear is nothing more than a poor beggar who sees money and loses her mind. That $500,000 wasn't a gift, it was a trap. His real goal was to wait until Seina Kiyakawa took the cash, then turn around and blackmail her with false testimony. Not only did he plan to take all the money back, but he also muttered obscenely about tricking her into a hotel room. Too bad to waste a face that pretty without having some fun. Yoko let out a cold scoff, cutting him off with a look of disdain. Save your dirty thoughts. She knew better than anyone. If money alone worked, why would you have had to spend a full half year getting Seina Kiyakawa to agree to date you? Yugo Yuki dismissed it completely, mocking you as a wild dog that only knew how to grovel, calling you an utter fool for cutting ties with them over a woman. Right then, an impatient Yoko cut him off again. I've got another plan. She spat out a far more vicious scheme. She knew Seina Kiyakawa wouldn't bend for money, but she had a single fatal weakness, her grandmother, who had raised her single-handedly. Yoko's plan was to use the grandmother's safety to force Seina Kiyakawa into submission, compelling her to betray you and accuse you with her own mouth. She wanted to watch with her own eyes as you transformed from a crown prince of the school into a stray, unwanted dog. Hearing that made Yugo Yuki's scalp tingle. He hadn't expected the woman to be so ruthless. The next second, he immediately hammered down his decision. Fine, I'll send some guys to her grandmother's place to pick up a package first. Yugo Yuki started to stand up, then hesitated. That Moku-san guy hits like a truck though. I'm worried he might try to block us midway. However, Yoko scoffed at the notion, gritting her teeth. Because you're only focusing on Seina Kiyakawa, it drives him up the wall. He can't protect both ends. With a cold grin, she added that she would have her father call Principal Mu to stir up trouble for you, while Yugo Yuki rounded up a few more lackeys to ambush you right outside the school gates. An inescapable net had already been cast your way. You were guarding Seina Kiyakawa's hospital room every second of the day, exhausting every last cent on your bank cards to secure the best room available for her. You even specifically asked Romo to go tell her grandmother that Seina Kiyakawa had gone out of town for a math competition purely to keep the old woman from worrying. Yet all your painstaking efforts were met with universal misunderstanding. When the head teacher came to visit, her eyes were filled with pure disgust. In her eyes, a delinquent like you had ruined a top-ranking student. After some time, Seina Kiyakawa finally woke up, yet she refused to speak a single word to you. You realized instantly that she must be harboring deep resentment toward you. By Friday, when you returned from the hospital after taking a quick shower and walked back to the room carrying supplies, you overheard voices right outside the door. Someone was shouting angrily at Seina Kiyakawa. Kiyakawa, this was all Moku-san's fault. He teamed up with Yoko just to bully you. You had the urge to kick the door open and punch the ungrateful bastard in the face. But right then, the folded darkness within the old wristwatch on your wrist jolted you awake. You finally understood that after being reborn, the future fundamentally could not be altered, no matter how desperately you tried to hide her away. The humiliation and bullying that were meant to happen struck with even greater ferocity, landing her in the hospital in a condition far worse than before your rebirth. The scar on your left palm began to itch intensely. In that moment, you had an epiphany. If bullying was inevitable, you would stop running. From this second onward, you would make yourself the target of every attack, redirecting every ounce of misfortune onto your own shoulders. That way, Seina Kiyakawa would finally be safe. A fierce glint sharpened in your eyes. Since Yugo Yuki had been stalking you, it was high time these punks got a taste of real pain. Meanwhile, Seina Kiyakawa's grandmother sat by the window. Her granddaughter hadn't come home for 3 days, though Romo claimed she had gone to a competition. The old woman's sharp intuition picked up on the hesitation in his voice and knew something was wrong. Right at that moment, you knocked on Seina Kiyakawa's grandmother's door, precisely on schedule. A cautious voice rang out immediately. "Who is it?" You quickly flashed a warm smile outside the door. "Hello, is this Kiyakawa's grandmother's home?" The old woman remained on guard. "What do you want?" "I'm Kiyakawa's classmate," he replied, before remembering your notorious reputation and swiftly pivoting. "My name is Chu Sheng. I'm just dropping by to check on you." The grandmother's voice turned even tenser. "Are you with those people from last night?" "Those people from last night?" Your heart skipped a beat as a heavy sense of foreboding washed over you. You hurriedly forced down your panic and offered a warm explanation. "Don't worry, Grandma, I'm her desk mate. She transferred here 6 months ago and went out of town for a math competition 4 days ago." Hearing those specific details caused the old woman's tone to soften slightly. But once you stepped inside, she nervously slammed the door shut and bolted it tight. The moment you walked into the room, you froze in place. It looked like a hurricane had ripped through the space. Trash littered every corner. The windows were smashed to pieces with glass shards scattered across the floor, and deep gouges scarred the walls. Forcing down the monstrous rage swelling in your chest, you tried to keep your voice as calm as possible. "Grandma, what happened to the place?" The old woman sniffed and took a long, shaky breath. "Last night, a bunch of people suddenly broke in and smashed everything up. They told me to pass a message along to Yen, demanding she think carefully about what she's doing." With tears in her voice and her whole body shaking, she added, "Classmate, they said Yen is in the hospital because a guy named Moku-san pushed her down the stairs." Your brain went completely blank. Wasn't that you? Before you could even process it, the old woman's legs gave out, and she collapsed straight toward the floor. You rushed forward to catch her, confirming with a mix of shock and fury. "They said a guy named Moku-san pushed Seina Kiyokawa down the stairs?" "Yes," the grandmother wept bitterly in your arms. "After trashing the house, they said if it weren't for my old age, they would have beaten me too." "Are they trying to drive Yen to her death?" You used all your strength to guide the grandmother to a chair and demanded in a harsh voice, "Was this just yesterday?" The old woman tearfully nodded. "They said if Yen doesn't comply, they'll come back every couple of days to have tea with me. I'm sorry. I am so sorry for dragging you into this." You patted the old woman's back, apologizing word for word, but the grandmother sobbed in response. "What are you apologizing for? You're just a student. Don't go messing with those hooligans." "I'll be fine, Grandma. I'm just curious. Can you tell me what the leader looked like?" Shivering, the old woman offered a crucial piece of information. The leader, all the guys with him called him Brother Chen. Forcing her frail body up, the grandmother urged you to hurry home, trembling as she pulled a few crumpled 100-yuan bills from her pocket and told you to help Yen find a place to stay outside and never come back. You solemnly accepted the bills, turned around and left, and immediately went out to buy a pair of iron knuckles. Slipping them onto your hands and warming up your muscles, you vanished completely into the cover of night. Chen Lin was a well-known local thug in the area. After asking around casually, you tracked down his front door and knocked. The door was opened by a woman in her 20s. Looking at your amiable expression, she asked with a puzzled look, "Who are you looking for?" You flashed a friendly smile. "I'm looking for your husband, Chen Lin." Then you added, "Just tell him Brother Shu-san sent me with a message for him." Hearing that, the woman immediately turned to call him over. At that exact moment, you pulled out a pre-prepared silk scarf and handed it over, "A gift for you." The woman accepted it with a pleased smile. The next second, Chen Lin sauntered to the door wearing a bathrobe. But the instant he stepped past the threshold, your left arm shot out like a vice, locking tightly around his wife as she fiddled with the scarf. Meanwhile, your right hand, fitted with iron knuckles, slammed a ferocious punch straight into Chen Lin's head. Caught completely off guard, Chen Lin crashed hard to the floor as blood instantly gushed from his nose and mouth. The woman in your arms let out a shrill, terror-stricken scream. You kept her locked in a one-armed hold, whispering softly in her ear, "This is your husband, the husband who loves threatening other people's families." Chen Lin struggled to push himself up, but you lowered your body and delivered another merciless, unhesitating punch. One punch, two punches. Your brass-knuckled fists hammered him relentlessly against the floorboards. During the beating, the woman shivered and tried to wriggle away, but you yanked her right back. "Don't go anywhere. You need to get a really good look at your husband's fate." You delivered a savage kick straight to Chen Lin's waist. The thug finally broke down and begged in a wheezing voice, "Let go of my wife! Just let go of my wife!" Looking down at her battered, pathetic husband, the woman was too terrified to even cry properly. "Please, please stop." Your inner demon was on full display. "Do you like watching your husband scratch around like this? Tell your husband for me. If he ever brings people to hurt innocent people again, I'll make sure you get a front row seat to watch him get beaten up all over again." And that was just the beginning. The very next day, you appeared right outside the gates of an elementary school. This was the school attended by Yugo Yuki's younger sister. Shusan Weiyun. You used to pick her up alongside Yugo Yuki back in the day. Though you were a lunatic, you weren't stupid. Chen Lin was just a low-level punk you could crush with brute force. But Yugo Yuki's family had standing and connections, and getting the police involved would be a headache. You decided to handle it in a friendly manner. Today was Monday, right on schedule for Yugo Yuki to pick up his sister. To prepare, you had taken the opportunity earlier to puncture the tires of his motorcycle. You calculated that you'd be the one leading the kid away. 5 minutes later, a group of children emerged from the school gates led by their teacher. You gave a wave, and the princess-like little girl immediately waved back at you, but the little girl looked at you skeptically. Then where's my big brother? Why isn't he coming to pick me up again? You lied without batting an eye. His car broke down. With that, you stepped forward to take her by the hand. However, the elementary school teacher eyed you suspiciously and asked you to wait a moment. You quickly introduced yourself as a friend of Yugo Yuki who had come by before. The teacher thought for a moment, seeming to have a vague recollection, but she still looked uneasy. "Let me make a quick call to check," she said, pulling out a Nokia phone and dialing directly. Your heart skipped a beat. Your immediate instinct was to stop her, but the surroundings were packed with parents, and the teacher was already wary of you. Someone was bound to call the police. Burning with anxiety, you prepared to abandon the plan and yelled at the little girl, "You know what? You should just wait here instead." With that, you turned to blend into the crowd and leave. But unexpectedly, the little girl tossed her head. "They're so busy they never have time for me. They probably just sent a chauffeur again anyway. So boring." At that exact moment, as if struck by lightning, you caught a glimpse of your own past self mirrored in her. You found your feet unable to move away. Right then, the teacher's call went through, and a man's voice came through the receiver. "Hello? What is it?" It was the voice of Shusan. You knew clearly that if you didn't leave now, everything would be exposed. You spun around sharply, ready to make your final escape, but the next second, the hem of your shirt was gripped tightly. The little girl tilted her head up, looking at you with tear-filled eyes. "Big brother, wait for me. Last time my brother didn't show up, and I had to wait here forever before anyone came." She actually started acting spoiled. "I'll give you stickers, okay? Please take me with you. They're the prettiest star stickers." Your pupils shrank instantly. At the same time, Shusan's voice boomed through the phone amidst the surrounding chatter. "That little brat refuses to pick her up again." "Yes, Shusan," the teacher said, holding the phone and hastily bowing. "Another gentleman named Moku-san has come to pick her up, and Vivi actually knows him." On the other end of the line, permission was given directly. "Then hand her over to him. Tell him to bring Vivi straight home. I'll be right there." Once the call ended, the little girl waved her hands excitedly, then looked up at you cautiously. "Big brother, can you just take one sticker?" But you broke into a mysterious smile. "No stickers for me. I'm gonna take you somewhere much better." The little girl looked thoroughly puzzled. "Where are we going? Didn't Dad want you to take me straight home?" You smiled and countered with a question. "Let me guess. You probably don't listen to your dad very much at home, do you?" "Only a tiny bit." "Then Big Brother will take you to the shopping mall to play." You took her school bag, and the two of you hopped right onto a bus heading toward the nearby mall. Vivi Shusan chattered endlessly on the way, complaining. Tuesday is calligraphy practice, Wednesday is violin lessons, and Saturday and Sunday are entirely filled with piano classes. "I don't have any time to play at all." You gently patted her fluffy hair. "That's because your mother cares about you." Consequently, the little girl pouted. "She's just stubborn and annoying, and all she ever does is yell at me." The little girl pouted further. "My relationship with her is terrible." You squatted down so your eyes were level with hers. "Well then, I really envy you for having a mother who actually keeps an eye on you." She puffed out her cheeks. "When I grow up, I'm going to make her do all these classes too, and I'm going to yank her blankets off every single morning." You chuckled without a word, then led her into the mall. You played rock climbing together, caught small fish and turtles, and bought her a lollipop. The little girl was as happy as a little angel, running around everywhere until she was dripping with sweat. You motioned for her to sit down and rest. Right at that moment, Vivi Jo, nibbling on an ice cream cone, pointed toward a piano nearby. "Big brother, since you bought me a cold treat, I'll play a song for you." You gazed at that piano, your expression instantly dimming. Once upon a time, in a seaside villa, Seina Kiyokawa had played one for you too, but you had long since forgotten how to play, having avoided touching a piano for over 3 years. A variation of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" rang out from the little girl's fingertips. You nodded along with the rhythm until she lifted her head and proudly walked back to your side. Only then did you offer praise. "That was played very well. Your foundational skills are quite solid." "Big Brother seems to know a lot about the piano," she said. "In the movies, people always smile while they play." You gently tapped her head. "Because movies are all made up. The most important thing when practicing the piano is sitting right in the center, keeping your fingers close to the keys, and cutting out any unnecessary expressions or movements." The little girl nodded with a look of half understanding. Watching her, you said softly, "Little sis, practicing the piano is exhausting. I hope you won't give up halfway like your big brother did." Yet, just as the two of you were having fun like biological siblings, the Shusan household had completely exploded into chaos. Shusan paced back and forth in the villa's grand lobby with his hands behind his back. "Just where did you say your sister went?" He pointed straight at Yugo Yuki's nose and roared, "Call the police right now! Call them immediately!" No sooner had Yugo Yuki finished explaining than his father landed a furious barrage of slaps on him, leaving his face bruised and swollen. "It must be that lunatic Moku-san who took little Vivi. The guy is completely unhinged." Shusan delivered yet another heavy slap. "Even a cornered rabbit will bite. You've pushed that kid past his breaking point. Don't you realize he's ready to risk his life now?" Yugo Yuki was thoroughly panicked, but he still stuck his neck out. "I don't believe for a second that the Moku guy has the guts to do anything." Shusan kicked him hard again. "Get out of here right now and find her. If anything happens to your sister, you can go die too." At that critical moment, a domestic helper rushed inside in a panic. "Young Miss is back!" Shusan and Yugo Yuki whipped their heads around to see Vivi Shusan holding a small teddy bear plushie and happily running toward them. But seeing the grim, heavy expressions on the adults' faces, she stopped dead in her tracks, looking completely lost. Your figure slowly appeared right behind the little girl. You nodded politely and courteously toward Shusan. "Good evening." Shusan let out a cold snort, while Yugo Yuki, sporting a face swollen like a pig's head, charged straight forward to attack you. But unexpectedly, the little girl spread her arms wide like a mother hen protecting her chick and blocked you with all her might. "Don't bully Big Brother!" You offered her a mysterious smile, then turned your gaze back to Shusan. "Aren't you going to welcome me, Shusan?" As you sat together in the villa's living room, you cut straight to the point. "As you can see, your daughter is completely safe and sound. I'm just here today to have you tell your son, actions against family are off limits." You watched the curling mist rise from your teacup, your voice turning icy. "He crossed my ultimate boundary." A sharp glint flashed in Shusan's eyes. "Aren't you afraid of my retaliation?" You laughed coldly. "I'm a madman, and the last thing I care about is trading my life. I'm certain that for a big shot like you, to trade lives with a nobody like me is a terrible bargain." After a long silence, Shusan finally spoke. "I'll keep Yugo in check. As for whatever is between the two of you, handle it yourselves." You let out a faint scoff, but he abruptly changed the subject. "However, let's call it quits for today. Don't ever come near my daughter again, or that little girlfriend of yours in the hospital won't have a pleasant ending either. It's a deal." You stood up to leave, but he added one final remark behind you. "You certainly don't talk like an 18-year-old kid." Just as you reached the doorway, Vivi Shusan suddenly ran over and grabbed your hand. "Big Brother, I have a question to ask you, and you're not allowed to lie." With red-rimmed eyes and a trembling voice, she asked, "When you took me away earlier, were you actually planning to hurt me? Is that true?" You paused. The little girl's tears instantly broke through the dam as she shook her head frantically. "Big Brother is so nice. I don't believe you're a bad person." You squatted down once more, your voice softening immensely. "Big Brother is a bad person, a very, very bad person. Your brother is a bad person too, but little Vivi is a good girl." You wiped away her tears. "Don't ever play with bad people like Big Brother again, understand?" You turned and took a step forward. From behind you came the little girl's heartbroken cry, "I have something for you." She fished a sticker out from inside her clothes. "This is the star sticker we agreed on. If you put this on, you can become a good person." You solemnly accepted the sticker and waved goodbye, backed by her reluctant shouts. "Big Brother, you have to become a good person. Then I can come find you to play again." You had barely walked 500 meters away from the Shusan residence when you were suddenly cut off. A full 6 individuals, armed with iron pipes and heavy wooden clubs, boxed you in tightly within the gloomy alleyway. The man leading them wore a gloomy, sinister expression and a hostile tone. "You must be Moku-san." Your heart skipped a beat. They arrived this fast? It looks like Shusan really did give his tacit approval. As long as the people close to you were left untouched, any other tactics were fair game, and you were ready to accept every single one of them. The leading man, Chen Jarui, sneered. "I heard you've been acting pretty wild lately, sending all those guys under Chen Lin straight to the hospital. Let's see if our crew is enough for you to handle." While adjusting your breathing and loosening your joint movements, you calmly sized them up. Every single one of them was solidly built. These were definitely no ordinary street punks. Having stretched out your muscles, you took a step forward with a deadpan expression. "I've got way too much on my plate lately, not really in the mood to look for more trouble." But right at that moment, 4 more burly men materialized at the alley entrance 5 or 6 meters behind you. Escape was completely cut off by a front and back pincer trap. Chen Jiarui smiled triumphantly. "You're a massive nuisance, so we brought a few extra hands." One of the thugs behind him hollered aggressively. "Just behave yourself and take a beating. With this many of us, you..." Before he could finish his sentence, you suddenly exploded into a sprint, charging straight into the crowd. The burly man was hit like a truck, instantly sent flying backwards several meters as your momentum carved a wide-open gap straight through their human wall. Without slowing down for a second, you bypassed Chen Jiarui entirely and bolted at full tilt toward the far end of the alley. Recovering from his shock instantly, Chen Jiarui roared, "What the hell are you standing around for? After him!" At 9 o'clock at night, you sprinted like mad down the empty street, tailed by a mob of cursing thugs. You knew full well that getting caught meant a guaranteed trip to the hospital with permanent paralysis. While running, you tossed curses back at their entire families. "I'm going to carve you up one of these days and feed you to your parents." The group of thugs turned red with fury. Yet 6 minutes later, after running a full 2 kilometers, you found yourself barreling headfirst into a dead-end alley. You glanced back and saw the pursuers were only 100 meters away. They were like relentless ghosts. Sweeping your gaze around, your eyes landed on a public restroom at the very end of the dead end. You had no choice but to brace yourself and charge right inside. Soon enough, Chen Jiarui and his subordinates blocked off the entrance to the restroom, everyone gasping like stray dogs. "This little brat runs way too damn fast." With a vicious wave of his hand, he barked a harsh order. "Block every exit. Today we're breaking one of his arms and one of his legs." Right at that instant, a single figure slowly stepped out. It was you. In your hand, however, you happened to be holding a massive, long-handled cleaning scoop. An overwhelmingly pungent stench instantly flooded the air, causing everyone present to instinctively hold their breath. Under the moonlight, you gave the hook handle a wicked twirl and smiled seductively. "Are you guys ready?" The next second, when they realized what was actually contained inside that scoop, every single thug froze in place as if struck by lightning. Predictably, the narrow alley echoed only with heart-wrenching screams, non-stop vomiting sounds, and your uninhibited wild laughter. Finally, 20 minutes later, you emerged from the alley covered head to toe in filth and bruises. You spat a contemptuous glob of spit onto the ground, but the next second, you grabbed onto a utility pole and threw up violently yourself. Shortly after, having washed away the grime, you returned to the hospital, only to immediately lock eyes with Aunt Peng as soon as you stepped inside. There was unbridled fury in her gaze. Not daring to meet her eyes and offering zero explanation, you kept your head buried downward the entire time. Aunt Peng finally broke the silence. "Who on earth did you get into a fight with this time? Your ribs are cracked." You stammered out a weak defense. They didn't exactly walk away looking any better. Changing the subject with a much smaller voice, you asked, Can you spot me some money? I ran through all my cash and got cut off again." Looking at you with utter disappointment, Aunt Peng scolded. "Did you pick another fight with David Mu? Now you've even picked up the habit of fighting around the clock. I heard you even slashed your own hand at the hospital last time, is that true?" Watching you stand there with your head down in silence, Aunt Peng let out a final sigh. "I'll wire 50,000 to your card, but I have to tell David Mu about this." You nodded obediently. "Aunt Peng, The one thing you feared most was seeing the look of disappointment on her face, a face that always carried the lingering shadow of your mother. Aunt Peng offered one more piece of earnest advice. The exams are right around the corner. Have your older sister Xiao Xiao tutor you a bit. You shook your head instantly. Forget it, she doesn't like me. Letting out a helpless sigh, Aunt Peng abruptly shifted topics. Was that girl from the hospital last time your friend? I heard she was admitted here too. Sounds like she took a bad hit to the head. A flicker crossed your eyes. Aunt Peng, I'm going to go check on her right now. No sooner had you stepped out of the ward than Aunt Peng's agitated voice followed you from behind as she made a call. David Mu, are you still planning on claiming this kid or not? Ever since Ah Ling left, you've completely ignored him. Right after, David Mu's disgruntled roar came clearly through the receiver. How have I ignored him? The company is about to go bankrupt because of him, and I heard he pushed someone down the stairs and had to pay a massive compensation sum. As far as I'm concerned, he can quit school. He's just going to cause an even bigger disaster sooner or later. Hearing halfway through, you turned away with a completely expressionless face and walked down the long corridor towards Seina Kiyokawa's hospital room. The afternoon sun shone brightly while the girl sat holding a book, acting entirely indifferent to your arrival. A dead silence hung between the two of you until you finally broke it. About the Yoko situation, don't worry, I've already taken care of it. You pulled a Nokia phone out of your pocket and placed it beside her bed. Use this to reach out if you need anything. You paused, your voice dropping lower. If you see your grandmother, you pointed toward her ear. You've got a scar right by your ear now, so you won't be able to tie your hair in a ponytail anymore. Still, straight hair looks pretty good on you too. You pulled an apple and a piece of cake out of a bag and dropped them into her hands. Dinner! Without even lifting her head, she replied, I already ate. All the words you wanted to say jammed in your throat. Scratching the back of your head in defeat, you turned to say goodbye. I'm heading out then. The moment you stepped out of the ward, you ran straight into two familiar figures. David Mu, followed closely by Yoko. David Mu's face was flushed with anger, while a smug smirk hung on the corners of Yoko's lips. Your expression turned freezing cold as you strode directly toward them. Seeing your aggressive stance, David Mu instinctively stepped forward to shield Yoko behind him. But ignoring him completely, you locked your eyes with a deadly glare onto the girl standing at his back. I have some business with you. Frowning, David Mu glanced first at the bandages wrapped around your body before assuming the full majesty of an outraged father. Moku-san, apologize to Yoko right now! You didn't even grant him a glance. Apologize for what? David Mu instantly blew his top. You shoved someone down the stairs at school and then had the nerve to talk coldly to Yoko. She's been through so much grievance. How can you be so utterly devoid of a conscience? You finally laughed, a laugh of pure ice. First of all, the person who pushed someone was Yoko, not me. The one lacking any sense of right, wrong, or a conscience is you. Being talked back to right in front of Yoko drove David Mu into a fury. Is that any way to talk to your father? When your mother was here, you were so obedient. What use is it even having you around? Were you just born to piss me off? Regretting it now is a bit late, isn't it? You might as well just snatch my life away. Standing nearby, the smugness in Yoko's eyes as she watched the father and son tear into each other was almost overflowing. Trembling with rage, David Mu pointed a shaking finger at you and roared, You're gonna end up a homeless stray on the streets one of these days, you ungrateful little beast. You met his gaze without an ounce of fear. Living on the streets is still better than staying at home getting beaten half to death by you. Use that tiny brain of yours to think, if I starve to death out there, whose face is it going to ruin? That remark completely ignited David Mu's fury. Disregarding the fact that this was a hospital, he raised his hand and swung a heavy slap straight at your face. Though battered, you were prepared. You gave a sharp twist of your body and dodged it cleanly. Immediately pivoting, your eyes locked onto Yoko, who was still putting on her act of feigned fragility. Yoko instantly put on a pitiful, wronged expression. Moku-san, how can you talk to your uncle like that? Just apologize and let it go. You two are father and son after all. She deliberately dragged out the words, father and son, but your response was a merciless, unreserved slap across her face. The sound echoed throughout the entire corridor as she was sent sprawling backward onto the floor by the sheer force of your strike. You watched clearly as her expression shifted instantly from triumph to sheer shock, followed by bottomless grievance and rage. I've been dying to smack you for a long time, you roared, lunging forward to deliver a vicious kick. Who the hell do you think you're fooling? In that split second, Yoko was completely stunned. Looking up at you in absolute disbelief with tears swirling in her eyes, she stammered, "How could you?" Sitting on the ground, she burst into loud sobs. Meanwhile, your father, who had spun around to face you, was veins bulging mad. He couldn't fathom that his own son would dare throw punches right in front of him. The next second, boundless rage consumed him as David Mew lunged forward like a madman, shoving you hard to the floor. He raised his foot, raining kick after kick down onto your body while roaring incoherent curses. Scum! Instantly, all the bystanders in the hallway were frozen in absolute shock, staring wide-eyed as a heavily bandaged youth was brutally beaten by a middle-aged man without a single soul daring to utter a word. Yet as you endured the relentless storm of violence, a strange sense of relief washed over you. You even found yourself flashing back to when you were 6 years old. Back then, you had hidden under the piano while he dragged you out and stomped on you. Back when you foolishly imagined yourself as a vessel filled with fresh blood that would produce new drops of vitality every time he beat you. Sitting on the ground, Yoko kept adding fuel to the fire. "Uncle, please stop hitting him, Uncle, I'm fine." Everything was crystal clear. You were the delinquent who bullied the poor, innocent girl. And here was your righteous father teaching you a lesson on the spot. Right at that moment, a cold, crisp voice cut through the air, abruptly halting the one-sided assault. "If you hit him anymore, he's going to die." You whipped your head around to see Seina Kiyokawa peeking out halfway from her hospital doorway, her eyes still brimming with moisture, like a layer of gathering tears. "This is a hospital. If you want to beat someone up, go do it at the police station." With that, she retreated back inside her room, her detached voice trailing behind her. "If you have something to say, talk it out like civilized people. Do none of you have mouths?" David Mew finally snapped back to reality. He made a move to help Yoko up, while you pushed yourself up, limping slightly as you stared at him with complete detachment. That deadpan look made a sudden wave of self-consciousness wash over him, which instantly remorphed into defensive anger as he made a move to strike again. Fortunately, a nearby bystander grabbed him tightly. "He's just an ignorant kid. Look, his clothes are already soaked through with blood." Snorting coldly in your direction, David Mew finally spoke. "Go reflect on yourself properly. If you realize you were wrong, come back early. I won't shortchange you." With that, he turned and stormed off without looking back, dragging Yoko along with him. Mimicking his gesture, you let out a cold scoff yourself. Your entire body felt as though it were being licked by flames, every single inch throbbing with a tearing agony. You twitched the corner of your mouth, just about ready to walk away, when Seina Kiyokawa's voice drifted out from behind you. "Did you go pick a fight with Yugo Yuki?" Turning back around, you saw her furrowing her brows slightly. The overhead light illuminated her pale face, making her look flawlessly immaculate, if you chose to ignore the jarring scar hidden behind her ear. You rubbed your chin with your thumb and answered casually, "Didn't fight, I just went to hang out with his little sister for a bit. We had a great time, actually. He's already promised not to come harass you anymore, so you can rest easy. Neither your grandmother nor you will have any more trouble." You turned on your heel, ready to leave. But after taking only a couple of steps, the hem of your shirt was yanked firmly. Looking back, you saw Seina Kiyokawa biting her lip with a deep frown, hesitating before her voice floated over, light as a feather. "Does David Mew always beat you like this?" You paused for a fraction of a second before flashing a broad, careless grin. "Not all the time. He only used to hit me when I refused to practice the piano. Later on, I lost my temper and smashed the piano to pieces." As if recounting something entirely trivial, you added, "No big deal. A kick to the back is whatever. I'm practically used to being manhandled anyway. It's not like hitting him back works, and taking it lying down doesn't work either." Pausing, your gaze drifted off into the distance. "There was this one time right after I finished eating, he started wailing on me and I ended up throwing up all over the place. Ever since then, I figured out a foolproof trick. Whenever he throws punches, I just hurl right back at him. Ha ha ha." But as you laughed, you suddenly doubled over, your hands clamping tightly over your face as tears streamed down uncontrollably, accompanied by a sudden fit of dry heaving. Even so, Seina Kiyokawa kept her grip locked firmly onto the hem of your shirt without letting go. She suddenly asked in a soft murmur, "What are your plans for the future?" Still dry heaving, Your thoughts completely scrambled. You wheezed. What plans could I have? Just winging it, I guess. I ran away from home over half a month ago, and I've paid the price this time. You shouldn't have anyone else coming after you anymore. Seina Kiyokawa abruptly cut you off. Pressing her lips together tightly, she asked word for word, "Study with me." You froze, then let out a self-deprecating laugh. I'm total dead weight that can't be propped up. Wouldn't studying with me just be a waste of your time? Because of that exact remark, Seina Kiyokawa immediately released her grip on your shirt, her voice turning icy. You're actually right about that. Mud really does belong right at home in the gutter. Catching the sarcasm and chill in her tone, you panicked slightly. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? I was talking about myself. I was just repeating your own words back to you, Seina Kiyokawa retorted unsparingly. Why are you getting so worked up? You caved instantly. Fine. I'll tag along and study, all right? Just don't get your hopes up about me. Maintaining her frigid tone, she replied, You don't even have any expectations for yourself. Why on earth would I? Stung by her verbal jab, you turned around with a defeated sigh, locked your gaze onto the scar behind her ear, and muttered, Lead the way, then. Aren't you going to get those wounds treated? Seina Kiyokawa watched the red stains bleeding through the bandages on your body, the moisture in her eyes visibly wavering, but you simply grabbed her arm. Let's go back and pack your things first. While bustling about, you threw out, I already put some ointment on, it's no big deal. Unexpectedly, her chilly voice drifted from behind you once more. I have nothing to worry about when it comes to you. Whatever happens is your own fault. Now that David Mew isn't managing you anymore, and given how lazy and devoid of self-control you are, if you just keep degenerating like this, you really are going to end up on the streets. Consider my offer rescinded then. You remained silent, trailing quietly behind her like a homeless stray as she led you out of the hospital. It wasn't until you reached the entrance of her grandmother's apartment complex that you finally managed to ask, Are we really going to your place for tutoring? Won't that be a bit awkward? Seina Kiyokawa countered directly. Where else would we go? Back to your dump. Besides, you've already met my grandmother anyway, so tutoring at my place works out fine. Starting today, don't wander off after school. Come straight home with me for tutoring, and you can head back to your own place afterward. The door was opened by her grandmother, who beamed with joy upon seeing Seina Kiyokawa before her gaze immediately shifted to you standing outside. Clearly still remembering you, the old woman looked you up and down in concern. Why are you hurt so badly? You didn't go out and get into a fight, did you? Stepping into the living room, Seina Kiyokawa chimed in with an excuse. He took a bad fall off the pommel horse in PE. Since nobody's taking care of him and his grades are already terrible, I wanted to bring him home to help him catch up. Is that all right, Grandma? Hesitating, the grandmother voiced her worries about the thugs from a few days prior returning and putting you all in grave danger. You offered a reassuring smile from the doorway. I reported them to the police that day. Those guys are already locked up. Only then did the old woman release a long, relieved breath and usher you inside. Upon stepping through the front door, however, you found the living room furniture utterly smashed to pieces. Consequently, Seina Kiyokawa led you straight into her bedroom, which happened to be the only room with a lock left intact, containing nothing more than a single wobbling little table. Right after that, Kiyokawa pulled a few blank sheets of paper from her drawer, giggling as she wrote down a few questions and handed them to you. A diagnostic quiz! A diagnostic quiz, so don't even think about trying to fool me. Leave it blank if you don't know it. At that moment, her gentle tone and expression gave you a strong sense of cognitive dissonance, making you feel very uncomfortable. A few minutes later, you handed in your test paper and asked tentatively, How is it? Kiyokawa's gaze swept over your haphazard handwriting and the string of bright red crosses she had drawn. Suddenly, she spoke up. Incredible. Such a unique test paper. You actually had the nerve to proudly shout back, I told you I was a genius. You expected her to scold you, but to your surprise, the corners of her lips curved slightly upward. Well, not a single question is right, but at least you filled out the whole thing. After grading the test paper, she took out another sheet of paper and began to carefully write. Party A is you, and Party B is me. You must unconditionally accept her arrangements. She can assign any homework and activities, with 2 full hours of tutoring every day. There was also compensation mentioned in the agreement. After pondering for a long time, she wrote 40 yen per hour, but the very next second, she crossed out the 40 and changed it to 30. You scanned through it in one glance, realizing that she went to all this trouble just to earn a bit of pocket money to subsidize her family. Thus, you picked up your pen and prepared to sign your name. But right at that moment, Kiyokawa suddenly asked you, "What school are you planning to apply for?" Without even thinking, you replied, "Whatever school you take exams for, that's the one I'll take them for." Kiyokawa abruptly snatched the pen right out of your hand and crossed out 2 hours a day on the agreement, changing it to 4 hours. You instantly gasped. 4 hours a day? Are you trying to kill me? However, Kiyokawa didn't say a single word. She just slanted her eyes and gave you a sharp look. That chilly expression paired with her piercing gaze instantly gave you a tight feeling in your chest, like your finger touching static electricity. For some inexplicable reason, you felt entirely unwilling to back down. Then it's a settlement. Starting today, starting this very moment. You felt as though you had been pricked straight to the heart by that look. You actually began studying hard alongside Kiyokawa. Even Yoko and Yuta, because of your previous retaliation, reined themselves in significantly. For a whole month, they didn't dare come looking for trouble again. Every morning you got up early to memorize English, and after finishing your tutoring and returning to your rented apartment, you would still lie in bed reading for a while. When you couldn't keep up with the pace of class, you buried your head in frantically doing the practice tests Kiyokawa gave you. Meanwhile, as Kiyokawa sat in the classroom grading your papers, she couldn't help wondering what kind of experiences you, this carefree young man, had actually been through. With such a solid foundation from elementary and middle school, you must have been an excellent student in the past. You must be someone who once had happiness, but then lost it. She was different from you. She was someone who had never known happiness since birth. Yet, watching your grades improve bit by bit under her company, she felt an unreal sense of daze, as if something was wrapping around her. She recalled the night that tore her life apart once more, when you threw your watch right next to her in front of everyone. Following that group of rich kids and mocking her recklessly, she could have accepted that outcome. But your sudden, subsequent change made it impossible for her to guess your motives. Could it be because the way she cried on the ground looked a bit like your mother's, and you were pitying yourself? This speculation made her immensely irritated, even stirring up a sense of disgust from the bottom of her heart. She absolutely did not need anyone's pity. Then what else could it be? Kiyokawa thought about it over and over, realizing she had nothing except this face of hers. Yet the scar behind her ear was exposed for all to see. With your family background and good looks, as long as you flashed your money, plenty of girls would throw themselves at you. Could it be under Yoko's instructions? But the way you looked at the hospital didn't look like an accomplice at all. Was using such a bitter, self-sacrificing trick to please her really worth it? Kiyokawa let her imagination run wild for a long time, failing to guess what you were thinking. She wanted to ask you directly, but she could already predict the answer. Because you're my girlfriend. For someone like you, changing girlfriends every week was probably normal anyway. What on earth was the reason? The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, and she suddenly drew a gigantic cross over the final blank question on your math test. She suddenly roared in a harsh voice. "How many times have I explained this question to you, and you still get it wrong? The midterms are right around the corner, and I bet you'll even struggle to pass." Originally feeling pretty good about yourself after finishing the test, you were suddenly hit with a harsh reprimand. You had no idea why she suddenly got so angry. You wanted to argue that the final major problem was genuinely difficult, but you were afraid of triggering the wrath of this volatile girl even further. You could only lower your head and say cautiously, "It shouldn't be that bad, right? I spent a really long time studying last night." Kiyokawa kept her face icy and said nothing at all. She simply widened her eyes and stared right through you. Her large eyes shimmering with moisture packed far too much destructive power. Even her angry glare looked pitiful in your eyes. You raised your eyes, only daring to look for 2 seconds before instantly lowering your gaze again. "I don't have time to be mad at you. I have too many things to do." You stubbornly talked back. "I already said, instead of wasting time apologizing to me, you'd better study more." You wanted to say something else, but right at that moment, homeroom teacher Sun walked over to Kiyokawa's desk. She tapped on the desk, signaling for Kiyokawa to follow her. Kiyokawa obediently stood up and followed her to the office, while you quietly got up and pressed yourself tightly against the office wall to eavesdrop. You heard teacher Sun exchange a few pleasantries with a smile before changing the subject. "I've heard about your situation regarding tutoring Moki-san. However, I don't think you need to do it for just this little bit of money." Kiyokawa immediately assured her, "Teacher, don't worry, tutoring him won't affect my grades." Who would have thought teacher Sun would show a look of disdain? You're being too naive. You're top-tier material for elite universities, and this is the most critical moment of your life. Don't ruin your future over some minor distractions. Even if you teach him, what of it? His grades have improved a bit, but he's still just hovering around the passing line. He's a rich young master living in a villa and using luxury brands. If his grades are bad, at worst he can just spend money to study abroad. You have no fallback plan, do you understand? Teacher! Through the crack in the door, you saw Kiyokawa's fingers gripping her trouser legs so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. She turned as if to leave. Then I'll head back first. But Teacher Sun refused to let her go, continuing to instruct. I know you have a stubborn temper, but when it comes to studying, if you can't, you just can't. Go back and move your seat back to the 4th row. Kiyokawa stopped the foot she was about to step forward with. She turned around and said in an extremely earnest tone, I don't think Moku-san is hopeless at all. His middle school knowledge is very solid, and he'll do very well on future exams. As soon as those words came out, Teacher Sun's tone instantly turned rigid. You mean his grades are going to get even better? Kiyokawa answered with absolute certainty. He can even get into the same university as me. Hearing that as if it were the greatest joke in the world, Teacher Sun let out a soft, mocking laugh. Impossible. Impossible. Kiyokawa actually fought back tit for tat. He has turned over a new leaf. Even though he's still a scoundrel, he's a scoundrel who can test well. Teacher Sun instantly turned crimson with rage. You think he's going to stick with you for long? A playboy like him, in another 3 months, you two will be finished. When you bomb your exams by then, you'll have plenty of reason to regret it. Kiyokawa lowered her head, staring intently at her worn-out sneakers. That statement was true. She had no way to refute it. In her heart, she understood too well. Weren't you just trying to find some amusement using her? Right at that moment, a tall figure walked into the doorway of the office. You spoke to the homeroom teacher in a humble tone. Teacher Sun, can we make a wager? Teacher Sun was stunned. Her initial reaction was to kick a student of poor moral character like you right out of the office, but your attitude right now was unusually calm. Unable to lose face, she just stood there blankly and asked coldly, a wager between a teacher and a student? It's about academics. Scoring in the top 10 of the class on the midterms. What did you say? Teacher Sun gasped on the spot, feeling like you were simply spouting wild nonsense. You're currently not even ranking in the middle of the class. Are you here to play a joke on me? Yet you wore a deadpan expression of absolute seriousness. I'm very serious, which is why I want to make a wager with you. Teacher Sun was provoked by your attitude. Since you're so serious, state your terms. You casually replied with a shrug. If I lose, right? I'm taking a huge risk here. At this, Teacher Sun was utterly baffled by your shamelessness. There has to be a stake. Her gaze turned frosty as she dragged Kiyokawa into the mess. If you lose, Kiyokawa goes back to the 4th row, and as for you, it's best you show up at school a lot less. You immediately retorted, and if I win? Teacher Sun sneered. As long as you don't break school rules, name your condition. Then, she raised the stakes on the spot, her eyes full of contempt. How about this? Don't say I'm making things difficult for you. As long as you can score in the top 10 in mathematics alone, I'll count it as my loss. You instantly hesitated. You had only rushed in to stick your neck out because you couldn't stand listening to their conversation, but who would have known Teacher Sun would raise the stakes on the spot? Now you were caught riding a tiger. If you back down now, the favor you had accumulated in front of Kiyokawa would instantly be wiped out to 0. Just as you were struggling, Kiyokawa, who stood beside you, gently poked you with her elbow. You caught on instantly. Fine. However, the moment you walked out of the office, Kiyokawa's face instantly went cold. I poked you just now to tell you to back down. What on earth is wrong with you? Is this kind of face really worth fighting over? You bit the bullet and explained, I just couldn't stand hearing that kind of talk. Kiyokawa fired back directly. In the past, she said much worse things, and you just whistle at her. Now you suddenly have self-esteem? You defended yourself unwillingly, leaving her with no room to retort. I finally managed to learn a thing or two studying with you. She looks down on me. Isn't that just losing face for you too? But she wasn't buying it at all. I can't be bothered with you. Go back right now and call off the wager. A flash of inspiration hit you, and you pulled a coin out of your pocket. Let's flip a coin to decide. You shook the gaming token in your hand. If it lands on heads even once, I'll go back and call it off." Kiyokawa narrowed her eyes like a little fox, not refusing. You flipped it twice in a row, and both times it came up heads. Just as you were about to throw it a third time, she suddenly smiled. Reaching out into midair, she snatched the coin right out of the air. "I can't stop you if you don't want to study, but don't try to trick me with a coin that has heads on both sides." You instantly froze. Since this little trick couldn't fool her at all, you had no choice but to confess. "I just wanted to vent some frustration. That test paper from earlier was last year's mock exam, and it was exceptionally difficult. The average score didn't even pass. If the midterm exam is at that level of difficulty, I might actually stand a chance of cracking the top 10. Kiyokawa let out a cold snort and ran off, leaving first after school. But when she returned to her room, put down her homework, and waited 10 minutes without seeing a trace of you, she nervously trotted back downstairs. From afar, she saw you squatting by the flower bed, wondering what you were up to. As it turned out, you were gently petting a stray tabby cat. The cat was dusty, yet unusually affectionate. After petting it for a while, you actually put your hands together in front of it, as if making a prayer. Meanwhile, Kiyokawa stood behind you with her arms crossed, saying nothing at all. Noticing the figure behind you, you deliberately raised your voice. "I made a wager with someone. If I lose, I'll have to slink away from school in disgrace. You have to bless me to win." "I don't want to lose again." Her icy voice came from behind you. "I thought you didn't care at all and had gone off to play." Without turning around, you explained with utmost sincerity. "I don't care about the wager, but I don't want the teacher to think you're wasting your time. Besides, I want to get into the same university as you, so I have to work harder." Crouched down with a devout tone as if praying to God, you added, "It's just a stray cat." Who would have known Kiyokawa would droop her eyelids with a look full of mockery? "You don't need to put on an act in front of me. You don't owe me anything." She even started settling accounts. The birthday party incident has been repaid, and the tutoring fee of 30 yen an hour hasn't been shorted by a single penny. Once the exams are over, we go our separate ways. There's no need to draw the line so clearly. You gently coaxed her. "I still have some. My mom's savings passbook. I haven't withdrawn it yet. Once the midterms are over, I'll treat you to a big meal." However, your naive words completely pushed her over the edge. "Moku-san, stop being so childishly naive. I'm not going to cling to you just because you're being nice to me. I don't need a savior, and I despise being pitied more than anything else." The next second, every single word she uttered pierced straight through your heart. "I am not that stray cat you picked up off the street." She turned on her heel and walked away, though she silently added a thought in her heart. "I hate being in debt, and I hate creditors like you who could vanish at any second even more." From that night onward, she resolved to keep her distance so that if she were ever abandoned again, it wouldn't hurt quite as much. When midterm exam day finally arrived, Kiyokawa was actually waiting right outside Teacher Sun's office. After waiting for nearly half an hour, the homeroom teacher finally hurried over. Wearing a rare, strained attempt at a smile despite her usual icy demeanor, she said, quote, "I'd like to talk to you about calling off the wager." Teacher Sun wouldn't give her an inch, opening with sarcasm. "He doesn't even have the guts to show up, so you're stepping in to make excuses for him? Weren't you just telling me how capable he was? Losing confidence now?" Kiyokawa froze, stumbling over her words for a long moment before managing. "He really does have talent, but when it comes to studying, last-minute cramming doesn't help much. I just feel like there's no need to push him quite so hard." That brought a wave of smug satisfaction to Teacher Sun, but she refused to let up. "What's the matter, Kiyokawa? Don't want him to face the consequences, so you come begging for a favor? The one who wanted to make a wager in the first place was him. Now he tries to slip away scot-free and makes you plead his case. A young woman still needs to keep some self-respect. It's not about reneging, I just think it's unfair to him." Teacher Sun let out a cold laugh. "It's entirely fair. His grade reflects the effort he put in. Why should someone else who busted their ass studying for a decade get surpassed because he studied for a month? Grades are the fairest and most merciless thing there is. Regretting it now is useless." Kiyokawa knitted her brows tightly, ignoring the teacher's jab as she lowered her head and bowed deeply to Teacher Sun. "Please, give him a chance." Her voice carried a heavy plea. "I can guarantee he'll hit the top 10 in the class by finals. Anything that went wrong is entirely my fault. I was the one who agreed to be his girlfriend back then too." Hearing that, Teacher Sun only replied coldly, I've caught wind of your personal affairs as well. You don't owe him anything. If anything, he's the one who let you down. There's no need for you to sacrifice yourself for him." But Kiyokawa refused to back down. If a slacker like Moku-san can pull off top-tier grades, wouldn't that make you look good as a teacher too? That argument seemed to hit home. Teacher Sun waved a hand impatiently. "I'm not short on good students, and you're just ruining your own future by pulling stunts like this. Then please put in a bit of effort to guide him properly." Realizing she had won a concession, Kiyokawa bowed deeply once more, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Meanwhile, you had been waiting for ages at Grandma's place. But Kiyokawa never came out. With a heavy hood pulled over your head, you headed toward the school alone, only to run into Yoko along the way. The Golden Child elite gave you a head-to-toe look of pure disdain. "So you actually changed your ways for that pathetic nobody?" Sick of the sight of her, you told her to get lost. But the troublemaker just sneered. "David Mew cut off your allowance ages ago, didn't he? I heard you've even been sneaking out to play piano at bars in the middle of the night to make pocket money. Why don't you consider coming over to my family's side? I'll double whatever you're making." Your temper flared instantly. "I haven't even settled accounts with you for pushing Kiyokawa down the stairs." That completely triggered Yoko. "You haven't settled accounts with me? You slapped me in front of everyone at the hospital and kicked me twice. If David Mew hadn't gone and begged my dad for mercy through the night, I'd have made sure you couldn't survive in the school. You spend all day bowing and scraping before that pitiful beggar. But has she ever given you a single warm look? She's just eyeing your allowances. Once your money runs dry, let's see how she treats you." Instead of getting mad, you laughed. "What business is it of yours what she does? What's the matter, feeling insecure?" Flushed red and white with anger, Yoko had no retort left and could only storm off in a huff. Just as you were about to hurl a snappy comeback at her retreating back, you caught sight of a familiar figure standing at the school gates. None other than Kiyokawa, the girl on your mind. You immediately broke into a jog, trotting over with a face full of smiles. "How come you didn't wait for me this morning?" Kiyokawa frowned. "Yoko said you've been going to bars in the middle of the night to play piano for cash." You flushed bright red with indignation, offering a flustered explanation. "It's not even for the money. I just wanted to practice so I could play for you later on." Her gaze grew even colder. "Did you study the piano just to pick up other girls?" Her words were sharp enough to sting, purposely looking for a fight. But deep down, you knew she was just mad that you had acted on your own initiative. That reminded you of an incident from your past life. Back when you were stuck in a wheelchair and bored out of your mind, you figured out how to cook a meal as a way to thank her for years of constant companionship. Pushing a wheelchair while trying to cook had been back-breaking work. But when Kiyokawa came home, she flew into an absolute rage, throwing the food on the table straight into the trash, smashing all the pots and pans to pieces, and ultimately firing all the household staff. Although she had changed in this lifetime, that stubborn, eccentric streak resurfaced once again. Not daring to play any more music, you quickly tried to placate her. "Of course not. I won't go anymore anyway. There wasn't much money in it to begin with." Kiyokawa let out a cold snort and turned to walk away, stepping at a brisk pace that showed she was furious to the core. You had no choice but to trot along beside her, flashing a cheeky grin as you tried to change the subject. "I've got a gut feeling I'm going to crack the top 10 in math today." Hearing that, she stopped dead in her tracks, slanted her eyes to shoot you a glare, and said, "As for your grade, you'd better just hand in a blank paper today so I can move back to the 4th row." You froze on the spot, completely baffled by her unprovoked anger, having no clue what you had done to tick her off this time. Right then, the warning bell for class rang. As you stepped into the exam hall, you were surprised to find Kiyokawa's desk situated directly in front of yours. Then the proctor walked in, giving you yet another shock. It was Teacher Sun herself. Your heart skipped a beat. Talk about a stacked deck of bad luck. As the exam papers were passed down row by row, Kiyokawa spun around with a completely expressionless face and parted her lips. The warning that finally reached your ears was as icy as could be. "Don't even think about peeking at my answers to cheat. If I catch you, I'll be the first one to report you to Teacher Sun." Once again, you were left completely speechless, standing frozen without even taking the paper. Up on the podium, Teacher Sun immediately noticed something amiss and barked out, "What on earth are you two whispering about back there? Talk about terrible karma. Today really is off to a cursed start." But the moment you actually received the test paper, you were utterly stunned. Several questions matched last year's ultra-difficult mock exam questions almost line for line, especially the final 2 long answer problems, which only had their numbers tweaked slightly. This is an absolute lock. Feeling pretty pleased with yourself, you picked up your pen and started writing furiously. After finishing early and looking up to see you still had over half an hour left on the clock, you simply slumped forward on your desk and drifted off to sleep. Little did you know, the exact second you put your head down, Kiyokawa's back stiffened abruptly in front of you, her brow furrowing deeply. When the end of exam bell rang, you were deep in dreamland until a loud bang shook you awake. A fist slammed down heavily onto your desk. You jolted upright, shouting in panic, "What's wrong?" You locked eyes with Kiyokawa's glare, which felt sharp enough to skewer you through. At the same time, you caught Teacher Sun's disdainful scoff and meaningful glance from the podium. Starting with false confidence, you piped up, "I bet I can grab a top 3 finish this time." Kiyokawa didn't give you the time of day, pulling out her answer key to cross-reference yours before relentlessly picking apart every single mistake you made. It wasn't that she was purposely trying to torture you. Her standards for you were simply miles higher than the standards you set for yourself. But you completely missed the point, figuring she had just found another excuse to throw a tantrum and make things difficult for you. Growing impatient yourself, you muttered, "Drop it already. Let's just go get some food." Her tone remained chillingly calm. "I can't let your tutoring fees go to waste. You missed at least 3 multiple-choice questions and 2 fill-in-the-blanks, so I'm pointing them out so you learn your lesson." Losing your patience entirely, you retorted, "Fine, I can't compare to you, Happy." Those exact words ignited a boiling fury inside Kiyokawa, though the angrier she got, the calmer she forced herself to become. Her eyelids fluttered into a pair of hair-raising crescents. "If you aren't going to compare yourself to me, how are you going to get into the same university as me?" With that, she turned and walked away, leaving you standing there completely bewildered. The rest of the exams went off without incident, save for the English test day, when that teacher, surnamed Wang, hovered right behind your shoulder the entire time, making your scalp prickle. As for Kiyokawa, she seemed to stay in a foul mood, though your thick skin let you brush off her sarcastic barbs with a laugh every time. 3 days later, Teacher Sun specifically called for you to report to her office. Your heart jumped straight into your throat. You knew the results were finally in. Standing obediently beside Teacher Sun's desk, your eyes immediately locked onto 2 test papers lying there. One belonged to Kiyokawa, missing a mere 2 points. The other paper was docked a full 20 points. Your heart skipped a beat, but the next second, Teacher Sun's words knocked you for a loop. You scored very well this time, 3rd place in the entire class. Only Kiyokawa and Yoko ranked ahead of you. A wave of relief washed over you, and just as you were about to let out a triumphant laugh, the fear of the teacher's wrath made you dial it back into a string of polite praises. But she changed the subject abruptly, cutting you off cold. "I wasn't finished." She pointed at your paper and Kiyokawa's paper side by side. "Moku-san, look at your state before versus your condition now." Your expression stiffened instantly. "Teacher, what do you mean by that?" Teacher Sun pressed her advantage. "How many practice tests have you done this past month? How many exercises did you memorize? Do you really think your math skills are that good?" You could only offer a vague reply. "Pretty okay, I guess." "Pretty okay? What kind of answer is that?" Teacher Sun's voice spiked sharply. "I think it's terrible. Look at this. The problem-solving steps, the punctuation, even the therefore and because symbols on your long answer questions match Kiyokawa's with absolute precision." Staring you dead in the eye, she dropped the fatal question. "Do you really think things are just that coincidental?" At that moment, a flash of memory from your past life struck you like lightning. Back then, Kiyokawa's scores were invalidated because she was accused of helping someone cheat, and she hadn't even been allowed to attend school for the final half semester. So that's how it is. You stared blankly at Teacher Sun, though a strange sense of numb peace and reassurance washed over you. Good thing the one committing the offense is me. The only person whose score gets canceled will be mine. Growing calm, you offered a token defense. "I practiced similar mock tests before the exam, and Kiyokawa tutored me personally, so this doesn't prove anything." Teacher Sun offered a warm, knowing smile filled with absolute certainty. "Spare Kiyokawa. Don't let her stray down the wrong path. She's a pitiful child from a poor family who spent a fortune to transfer here." Do her a favor and let her slide so she can get into a good school and turn her life around." Hearing those words, you nodded. You felt entirely transformed as you spoke with a level of peace you had never shown before. "I won't be coming to school anymore after this." Teacher Sun blinked, seeming caught off guard by your compliance, as if she felt like the villain. "My standards aren't high. Keep sitting in the 8th row from now on and let Kiyokawa move back up, understood?" But you only nodded solemnly, offering a wry smile. "I guess I was the one dragging her down after all. But seeing how much you care about her, teacher, I'm actually quite touched. Starting tomorrow, I'm dropping out of classes." You turned ready to leave. Teacher Sun pulled the papers back, likely wanting to say something else, but right then, the office door flew open with a violent crash. Just as you had mentally prepared yourself to bear the full brunt of the fallout, the door was shoved wide open. Kiyokawa stormed straight inside, launching into an angry tirade the moment she saw you. "Do you not have a mouth? Are you completely incapable of defending yourself?" Following that up by catching sight of the test papers in Teacher Sun's hands, she went into full offensive mode. "Teacher Sun, Moku-san did not look at my paper." Teacher Sun's face stiffened as she scolded coldly. "Then that means you copied his." Kiyokawa didn't yield an inch. "If you don't believe it, write up a brand new set of test questions and quiz him right now." But Teacher Sun was already blinded by anger. "I don't have time to waste on the two of you. When it's this obvious, do we really need evidence?" Looking at Kiyokawa with heartbroken disappointment, she said, "Kiyokawa, not only did you assist him in cheating, but you're covering for him too? Don't you care about your own grades anymore?" There is only one correct answer. What kind of evidence is having the same thought process? A flash of anger flared up in Kyoka's eyes. "It's completely unfair for you to think that way." Sun-sensei was completely provoked. "If you hadn't begged me the day before yesterday, I would have kicked both of you out of the exam hall long ago." "Did you catch any evidence of us cheating?" The two of them argued fiercely. The next second, Sun-sensei picked up your test paper and tore it to shreds right in front of you. "No matter what you say, it's a 0. Don't even think about making me change my mind." You hurriedly pulled back Kyoka, who was about to rush forward. "Let's go outside and talk." But who would have known that she yanked her hand away from you and marched back to the desk in a fury. Following that, she pulled her own near-perfect score paper from the stack. With a ripping sound, she tore it to shreds as well. Under Sun-sensei's shocked gaze, she tossed her head and walked away. You stared at the fluttering scraps of paper all over the floor, which still neatly bore the name Kyoka, and knelt down to frantically try to piece them back together. But ringing in your ears was Sun-sensei's uncontrolled roar. "0! Both of you get 0s! I'm reporting this to the principal and giving both of you a disciplinary mark." What you felt heartache for wasn't yourself. Your chest heaved violently as you abruptly blurted out, "Sensei, I forced Kyoka to let me look at her paper. Don't punish her." "It's too late for you to say that now," Sun-sensei snapped, her anger still unslaked. "Look at what you've turned her into. You have a wealthy father, so you can do whatever you want, but Kyoka has to rely entirely on herself." You lowered your head obediently, still wanting to argue. "She's completely innocent. You shouldn't." "Let's go," a voice suddenly interrupted you. You jerked your head around. Kyoka was standing right there, with the dazzling sunlight shining behind her. Her expression was serene and gentle, yet tears fell like silent stars, dropping one by one as she reached out her hand to you. You froze for 2 seconds. "Okay, let's go." The two of you skipped class together. After recovering your wits, you couldn't help sighing. "What on earth are you thinking? I cheat if I want to. Fine. Now look at this. Not only is your score gone, but you're gonna get a disciplinary mark too." You only felt a wave of helplessness. The wheels of history seemed utterly unstoppable no matter what you did. But who would have known that upon hearing this, Kyoka turned toward you, full of hostility. "Don't you dare try to protect me using this kind of method. I am not a pet in your hands. I don't need any savior, and I don't want you to wrong yourself putting on some pitiful melodrama." You completely understood now. What on earth is wrong with your head? Yet Kyoka looked straight into your eyes, responding word for word. "You treating me well, protecting me, changing yourself, I see it all. And I am paying you back in my own way, so that after you leave me." You completely failed to understand. "How could I ever leave you? I don't want any payback. Even if you have nothing left, I still want to stay with you." Yet she seemed even more in pain. "Change is hard. You can do it, but I might never be able to pay you back in this lifetime. Do you expect me to just stand by and watch you drop out of school and suffer humiliation for my sake?" You hurriedly explained, The birthday party was my fault. It was my retribution. I don't need your repayment. Look at me. Kyoka suddenly lifted her head, her gaze as clear as a cold spring. You can't just reject everything. You always have to demand something. Before, it was about Yoko. Now, what on earth do you want to get from me? You were left speechless by this paranoid, twisted logic. Why do you always assume I have ulterior motives? Because I am that kind of person, she said, leaving you dumbfounded. And I believe anyone who gets close to me is also that kind of person. You were so angry you laughed, your tone growing impatient. Can't it just be that I genuinely want to treat you well? Impossible, she said flatly. Every bit of kindness hides a motive. Once I lose my utility value, you'll throw me away sooner or later. This thorn-covered person simply refused to believe in any unconditional kindness. Driven to your wits' end, you blurted out, "Can it just be because you're my girlfriend?" Those words left her completely silenced. She lowered her head, biting her lip, and suddenly asked an unrelated question. What kind of clothes do you like? A blue dress. Wait, what do you mean? I'll go buy a blue dress, she said, a layer of moisture welling in her eyes, though her voice was as cold as poison. And then we'll live together. Once you get what you want, you'll probably leave satisfied, right? A bone-chilling despair struck you instantly. Rambling incoherently, you practically begged, "Why do you always think the worst of me? Is a relationship just a business transaction? I know I acted terribly that day. If you want me to kneel and beg you, I can do it right now. Even if you give me a slap, I have nothing to say. I just want you to have a better life." Kyoka frowned, the tears in her eyes becoming even more pronounced. You don't need to apologize. I was mentally prepared when I went to the karaoke bar. I don't blame you. With that, she turned to walk away, but you grabbed her wrist. Then why are you always running away? Why do you always wrap your heart in malice? You stared right into her eyes, asking syllable by syllable, "If you must ask what I want, I'll tell you now. Stop being so defensive against me." "I can't change," her voice carried a sob. "I'm just this kind of person. In this world, unconditional love is only reserved for good kids. I'm not one of them. Instead of getting what you want me to forgive you? I never want to see you again." Before the words finished echoing, she violently jerked her hand free and ran off without looking back, leaving you standing frozen in place all alone. Meanwhile, on her walk away, Kyoka's hands and feet felt ice cold. Just as she was wandering in a daze, a voice suddenly sounded behind her. "It's Kyoka-san, right?" She turned sharply. It was the woman you called Aunt Peng from the hospital the other day. Aunt Peng had caught up to Kyoka. Without her white lab coat, she exuded an air of elegance and smiled warmly. "Mogura has been searching everywhere for you, and even called to beg me to look. It seems my luck today is better than that kid's." Inside a cafe, Kyoka held a cup of hot milk and asked straight to the point why she was there. Aunt Peng gently asked, "Mogura wants to find you. Did the two of you have a fight?" "We aren't actually boyfriend and girlfriend," Kyoka replied, adding, "My temper is terrible. Nobody can stand me, Mogura included." But Aunt Peng just smiled. She told Kyoka, "You've got that wrong. I've seen all of Mogura's changes over this past month. You really have a wonderful influence." Following that, Aunt Peng laid out your past, piece by agonizing piece, right in front of Kyoka. Your mother had once been a homemaker who, desperate to keep a tight leash on her husband, forced you to study everything under the sun. Once, during a piano lesson, you threw a tantrum, and right after the teacher left saying your mind wasn't in it, your mother stormed straight into the classroom and knocked you to the floor with a slap in front of a group of kids. She kicked and cursed you, shouting, "You're a worthless piece of trash. Even the teacher doesn't want to teach you." It wasn't just your mother. Your father beat you too, leaving your body covered in bruises. The dense web of scars on your legs. Some were from their beatings, and some you inflicted on yourself when you couldn't take it anymore. You ran crying to Aunt Peng, saying you didn't want your mom and dad anymore and wanted her to be your mother. But she could only send you back. Time and time again. Aunt Peng caught her breath. It was because of the piano, too. That day, she heard a friend bragging about her daughter winning a piano award and came home to berate you. You, right in the middle of your rebellious phase, got into a huge shouting match with her, only to be savagely beaten by your father who rushed in. You finally broke down completely. "I've had enough of both of you. I never want to see either of you again for the rest of my life." The next second, you ran to the balcony, wanting to jump. Your mother rushed over to grab you, and as a result, both of you fell over the railing. Fortunately, it was only the third floor and your mother shielded you in her arms. But the real despair had only just begun. In the hospital room, your father dragged you off the bed and pinned you to the floor to beat you. Your mother struggled to get up to stop him, while you cowered under the bed like a terrified little beast, watching with your own eyes. Watching your father swing his hand down in a fury, and watching your mother, whose injuries hadn't yet healed, never get up again. Before closing her eyes, she entrusted you to Aunt Peng, saying that the thing she was most sorry for in this life was you. From that day on, your father believed you drove your mother to her death, while you believed your father killed your mother. Father and son glared at each other like sworn enemies. When Kyoka finished listening to all of this, the hand holding her milk cup trembled slightly. Would this thorn-covered girl soften her heart after learning about all your scars? In a place where you couldn't see, Aunt Peng laid bare every single one of your scars, raw and bleeding, in front of Kyoka. Even the usually serene girl's gaze carried a trace of stinging pain. Only then did she realize she had never truly known you at all. Then Aunt Peng finally revealed her purpose. Auntie is begging you for a favor. Please persuade Mogura to come home for a visit. She just wants you to get him to come home and pick up some money so he doesn't have to struggle so hard out there. But Kyoka calmly shook her head. Auntie, him and I are just ordinary friends. I'm afraid he'll take his anger out on me. If I try to persuade him, he'll only push me away further. Yet Aunt Peng looked at her with certainty. You shouldn't underestimate your standing in his heart. These words plunged Kyoka into complete silence. She feared your reaction, yet she also harbored a faint, unprecedented, fragile spark of hope. She actually hoped you would agree. But on Kyoka's walk home, Romo suddenly appeared, blocking her path with an excited expression. Is Mogura still bothering you? That guy has no shame and is full of bad intentions. Make sure you don't believe his lies anymore. Hearing your name, Kyoka knitted her brows tightly. Romo panicked and kept trying to smear your reputation. How could you possibly score a 0? It must be Mogura's doing. Kunyan, don't be afraid of him. Let's file a joint complaint with the teacher to get him kicked out of school early. That completely enraged Kyoka. What did you want to say? Her pupils constricted as she caught sight of a tall figure standing right behind Romo. The gaze you directed at her made her lower her head with a guilty conscience. Romo, completely oblivious, continued shouting, Even if he doesn't drop out, once our exams are over, you'll finally be able to get away from him. You smiled, stepping closer step by step, the veins on your forehead throbbing. Your icy voice rang through the street. Get away from me? I already said, even if I die and turn into a vengeful spirit, I'll never let her go. You stared dead at Romo, your eyes full of warning. And let me warn you one more time. Don't call her Qingyan. Looks like your skin is itching for another beating, huh? Romo kept blustering, telling you to stay away from Kyoka. You directly rolled up your sleeves, ready to teach him a lesson on the spot. The business between the two of us isn't for an outsider like you to talk about. Get lost. Yet Romo stiffened his neck. You're the hypocritical outsider here. The few guys around him also swarmed in, eyeing you hostilely. The atmosphere instantly dropped to freezing point. Kyoka spoke up. He is my boyfriend now, not an outsider. The expression on Romo's face instantly collapsed. Even you, who were just about to throw punches, choked the curse right back down your throat. What is going on? Following that, Kyoka walked past everyone, waving at you from a distance. Let's go. As you walked past Romo, you slammed your shoulder hard against his. I'm in a good mood today, so stay away from her in the future. She's my girlfriend, after all. You strutted after her like a domineering crab, catching up to her side. Are you still going to tutor me in my studies today? She flatly refused. You were momentarily at a loss for words, and could only trail behind her. To your surprise, she led you right to the entrance of an arcade. Refusing to go in, you asked, why come here? This isn't the kind of place you should be. Kyoka looked straight at you. If you want me to forgive you, the first thing I want to do right now is have you take me to play at the arcade. She suddenly turned assertive, grabbing your hand and pulling you inside. She even tucked your arm against her chest. A light brushed through your clothes, making you feel her entire body heat up. Everyone in the arcade stared at this young girl, but Kyoka didn't care at all, stubbornly spending 100 yen on a massive box of coins. She shoved most of the coins into your hands and dragged you over to the basketball shooting machine, but out of 10 balls, she only scored 2. Finding it hard to watch, You tossed a few shots yourself, but your heart was entirely filled with self-reproach. Did I really corrupt her? Seeing that your spirits were low, Kyoka instead pulled you over to a rhythm piano machine and said, "Didn't you play piano at the bar? Try this out." You stared at the row of plastic keys, your Adam's apple bobbing. Before your fingers even touched them, you felt a stinging pain like needles. But Kyoka beat you to it and inserted a coin. You had no choice but to bite the bullet, absent-mindedly plinking at the keys while occasionally glancing back at her. Her expression remained cold, but the corners of her lips were curved upward just a fraction. That single smile instantly energized you. You played song after song, and a crowd began to gather around you. By the time you tackled the hyper-difficult Flight of the Bumblebee, you actually broke the high-score record. When the machine spat out prize tickets, applause erupted all around. "Not bad," Kyoka nodded at you, and you smiled back. Who would have thought that these skills you had once thrown into the trash heap could win her approval? You felt both ashamed and inexplicably satisfied. You traded 150 prize tickets for a thermos cup. She shoved it straight into your hands. "This is the prize you won." At that moment, Kyoka suddenly asked, "Is the piano at home fixed yet? I want to go to your house and listen to you play." At that moment, you understood everything. She was using the gentlest, most careful way to touch your past and protect your pathetic shred of dignity. You smiled wryly and said, "You don't have to treat me like this. I'm a bad person." You expected her to back down, but to your surprise, Kyoka made a rare joke. "I know you're a bad person, but then again, so am I. We're both people who have been through hell." You fell silent, reaching your hand out, only to tightly grip the thermos cup instead. She looked at you and continued, "Play the piano for me tomorrow, and I'll give you my answer." "What do you want to hear? Debussy's Clair de Lune?" You finally waited for her arrival, but from afar, you saw her carrying a gift box. You immediately panicked and yelled out, "What did you buy? Go return it right now!" Once she walked closer, you clearly saw the bottle of liquor, a 2008 commemorative edition Mutai, costing at least 3,000. Your mind buzzed, and you anxiously reached out to grab it. What were you thinking? If I knew you were going to buy liquor this expensive, I never would have agreed to come home. You reached out to snatch it, but Kyoka held onto it for dear life, refusing to let go no matter what. Just as you were locked in a stalemate, a luxury sedan pulled up smoothly to the entrance. Two people stepped out of the car, including your brother. Peng Yuan caught sight of the gift box at a glance and immediately sneered. "My, what a precious gift for Dad, how rare." You froze instantly, words failing you. To your surprise, Kyoka casually shoved the liquor bottle into your hands and proactively greeted them. At the dinner table, your brother suddenly piped up. "I heard Mogura has been studying at your place recently. He hasn't caused your parents any trouble, has he?" Just as Kyoka was about to answer, you jumped in first. "I've been staying there for over a month now. Asking this hypocritical question now, do you think you're funny?" Your father paused his chopsticks. "Kyoka-san, invite your parents over next time so we can all get together." You knew full well what he was doing. He was trying to sound out Kyoka's background. Unable to hold back any longer, you fired straight at him. "Why are you always prying into other people's families? Can't the food shut your mouth?" You picked up your cup, then abruptly put it down. "Here, you have gout. Then eat some tofu." "Tofu isn't allowed either." "This meal is impossible to eat. Let's go." Your father shook with rage. Ignoring him entirely, you stood up to pull Kyoka along, telling her to grab the bottle of liquor from the living room first. Meanwhile, Kyoka walked alone toward the villa's gates. Just at that moment, another car stopped at the entrance, and a curly-haired young woman stepped out, walking straight toward Kyoka. "You're Kyoka, right?" She looked Kyoka up and down. "I'm basically Mogura's half-sister." The next second, her tone sharpens. "Mogura leaving is for the best anyway. He's just as neurotic as his mother. Such a bitter woman." You expected Kyoka to take a hit, but she only replied with a cold sneer, "You must be that kid who won some piano award." "Yet I've never heard your name in any major competitions. I suppose your talent has reached its absolute limit." Peng Zhixiao's face instantly flushed red and white. Kyoka continued, "You also belong in the second-tier category, miles away from a true genius. Since things aren't going your way now, do you have to come home to see Mogura, just to find your own sense of validation?" Kyoka wanted to keep going, but you yanked her behind you. Your whole body was tense as you glared daggers at the curly-haired girl. What are you two chatting about? Seeing you, Peng Jixiao looked momentarily awkward, but quickly recovered her nonchalance. Nothing much. Immediately shifting gears, she pointed at Kyoka. She's dressed like this coming over here. Aren't you embarrassed? You retorted without missing a beat. What's there to be embarrassed about? Me embarrassing her would be the real issue. Peng Jixiao hadn't expected you to say that. She blinked, her gaze dropping to the glaring bottle of liquor in your hand. Peng Jixiao asked mockingly, "Stealing things from home again? You must be strapped for cash. Hand the stuff over to me and I'll transfer the money to you so you don't end up getting beaten." Stunned into silence, you could only turn your head to look at Kyoka. What was she just talking to you about? Nothing much, Kyoka said with a breezy expression. I happen to know a bit about the piano, so we just chatted about overseas competitions. Hearing this sarcastic tone, Peng Jixiao picked a fight on the spot. Talking a big game, are you? When are you free to give me some pointers? You directly shielded Kyoka. Save it. Don't bring up the piano every single second of the day. With that, you grabbed Kyoka and walked away. But from behind came Peng Jixiao's nauseating voice. Running away from home again? I heard Yao Ping fell out with you because of this little girl over here. And Dad even lost a huge contract because of it. Why do you have to be so difficult? You abruptly halted your steps. Do you have any right to lecture me? I never want to see you again. You yanked Kyoka along and left without looking back. Wandering aimlessly, you felt as though every ounce of strength had been drained from your body. You squatted heavily on the ground, frantically trying to wipe clean that bottle of liquor. Fate seemed utterly impossible to change. In your past life, Yao Ping had knocked down Kyoka and demanded 3,000 yuan in compensation. In this lifetime, she still paid that price, only substituted with a bottle of 2008 Mutai. Looking at the swirling cloud patterns on your watch, the cracks caused by the birthday party were actually healing little by little. Your heart tightened. The moment the watch was fully restored, you would inevitably return to that seaside villa, living in a daze, crippled for life. All your struggles had turned out to be a ridiculous exercise in futility. Right then, Kyoka's voice sounded, "Are you going to cry?" You took a deep breath, your voice thick with exhaustion. I'm going to end up disabled in the future. I don't want that. Hearing this, Kyoka smiled. Such a loser, you won't even be able to afford a big villa. You almost laughed out of exasperation. I'm useless, but if you get a villa in the future, can you lend me a room? Kyoka actually paused to think seriously. If I get a villa, I'll find you one right by the sea. You held back a sigh. I want you to listen to the sea breeze and the tide. Maybe that will knock these gloomy thoughts right out of your head. You lifted your head, looking at her quizzically. Can you do me a favor when the time comes and give me a few sleeping pills so I can leave quietly? Her gaze turned frosty. If you don't want to live, you can go sit right in the middle of the street right now. You stood up from the ground and walked over to sit on a bench. Can you not talk to me so harshly? Trying to lighten the mood, you asked, when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? She answered almost instantly. Nothing. You poked her with your elbow. Humor me a little. She hesitated. My mom raised me to believe I didn't need to study hard. Just be a pretty gift, get nicely packaged, and marry well. Even back then, I figured being a wife was a career too. And it required competing for the position. My mom had strong business acumen, which is why she stole my older brother's mother's place. Later on, when her business acumen failed her, she was tossed aside. You understood completely. You instinctively probed, then how do you rate your own business acumen? I only know how to tear people apart. Kyoka shot you a sidelong glance. But I learned one truth from my mom. Business acumen depreciates, but money doesn't. Instead of pinning your hopes on a man, it's better to make your own fortune. That's the only way a relationship feels secure. Hearing that, you couldn't help a snort of disbelief. That's not a relationship at all. That's just two transactions mutually attracting each other. You deliberately baited her. If you had a wealthy father who suddenly wanted to sell you off like merchandise one day, what would you do? Kyoka lowered her head, pondering for a long moment. If I couldn't fight back, I suppose I'd agree. But the exact moment she lowered her head, an intensely cold thought flashed through her mind. If that day really comes, I'll figure out a way to get that man and her father killed, and then come back and find you. She snapped back to reality, breaking out in a cold sweat. Why would a thought like that suddenly pop up? And since when did I start considering a future with a man like you? You didn't seem to like her very much. It felt more like an unconditional, penance-like devotion. If one day you felt you no longer owed her anything, would she be abandoned all over again? This thought clung to her like a festering scar, filling her with instant panic and even breeding a sliver of resentment. Yet you remained completely oblivious, smiling as you said, "You usually have such a strong sense of agency, but deep down you're a pessimist. I'd rather die than live a life being manipulated like that." Your words completely ignited her. Kyoka jerked her head up, instinctively firing back. "You can't die. You can't just forget the mistakes you made. You have to stay alive and keep me company." Your face flushed bright red, all the way down to your collar. Feigning composure, you looked at her. "Are you saying, don't leave you?" "I'll take it that you are," you shrugged nonchalantly. "Relax, I'm not gonna leave you." The atmosphere eased up. You suggested let's go return that bottle of liquor first. "Wait." Kyoka's tone softened considerably. "I didn't even eat dinner and ran out with you. That's going too far, isn't it? Treat me to dinner. Let's go to that night market stall over there." The two of you walked one behind the other to a roadside barbecue stand. You looked at the frozen chunks of meat skewers with deep concern. "Mogura, this doesn't look very hygienic." "This one," she said firmly. Figuring she rarely made requests, you simply nodded. You found a random empty table and sat down. Kyoka was wearing a dress today, making her exceptionally eye-catching. Sure enough, a few young guys nearby were whispering in her direction with their phones out, and even the sound of camera shutters could be heard. She instinctively tugged at the hem of her skirt to cover her legs. You returned from placing the order and marched straight toward that table without a word. She hurriedly came up and tugged at your sleeve. Taking a picture is no big deal, but you just smiled at the group of guys and asked, "How is it, fellas? Isn't my girlfriend pretty?" Those guys had assumed you were coming over to pick a fight, and upon hearing that, they chuckled good-naturedly. "Bro, with such a gorgeous girlfriend, how could you have the heart to bring her to eat at a street food stall?" You laughed heartily, completely unbothered. "I'm a penniless guy. This is all I can afford." The guys burst out laughing. "No way, bro, you're a legend. How did a girl like this even agree to follow you? How did you pull that off?" You raised an eyebrow triumphantly, smugly saying that buying breakfast and bringing a few small snacks is all it takes. You shamelessly bragged that the real secret weapon is simply the fact that you're so handsome. The group of young guys all turned toward you at once, shooting you looks of utter contempt. Right at that moment, the owner brought over the freshly grilled skewers, filling the air with a mouth-watering aroma. You opened a bottle of beer, pulled Huingyan to sit back down with you, and the owner set down the skewers. You hurriedly handed the fried noodles to Xingyan, filled up a glass of beer for yourself, and said, "Old man, my stomach's a bit sensitive, so I've got to watch out." The owner waved his hand dismissively. Xingyan lowered her head, eating her noodles in silence. In front of you were over a dozen large meat skewers, while in front of her was only a plain, ordinary plate of noodles. This stark contrast made the guys at the neighboring table scratch their heads in frustration, burning with hidden jealousy. They couldn't for the life of them figure out how such an obnoxious guy managed to score such an insanely gorgeous girlfriend. The truth was, Xingyan didn't really care for street food stalls, since the soy sauce flavor was always way too heavy. After taking just 2 or 3 bites, she lifted her head and looked straight at you as you happily devoured your food. "What do you want to do with your future?" You wiped your mouth with a paper napkin, freezing up instantly. This felt like the first time she had ever initiated a casual conversation with you on her own. You awkwardly scratched the back of your head. "My childhood dream was to be a chef." She replied coolly, "Can you even cook food properly?" See? You couldn't go 5 minutes without her taking a jab at you, yet it somehow didn't bother you at all. You took a sip of beer to steady your nerves. "When I was little, my mom was always busy in the kitchen, so I figured if I became a chef, I could just stay in the kitchen and wouldn't have to go to so many cram schools." Xingyan seemed to be reminded of her own mother, and followed up by asking, "Are you really going to be a chef?" "Just kidding." You shook your head with a smile. "I just wanted to piss my mom off. Your mom spent her whole life worrying over nothing, pinning all her hopes entirely on you." She asked another question. "Then where do you want to go in the future?" "Wherever you go, I go." You wiped the smile off your face, your tone turning serious in a way it never had before. "Ideally, somewhere far away from here. I want to live a good life. A really good life." A rare trace of melancholy flickered across your expression. "Back in middle school, my dad got physical with me. He beat me really hard. In a fit of rage, I fought back and shoved him to the floor. Then I grabbed a chair and smashed our grand piano to pieces. Afterward, terrified he was going to beat me to death, I secretly ran away from home. But once I ran out of allowance, the police brought me back. Qingyan's eyes stirred slightly. Did your dad beat you after that? Nope, you shook your head. From that day on, we basically stopped talking. He just deposited a fixed allowance into my account every month and left me to sink or swim. It wasn't until I spent a year drifting aimlessly, finally realizing how miserable it all was, that I went back and told him I wanted to study hard. And you know what my dad said? He told me I didn't need to study, as long as I managed my relationship with Yoko properly. You really are a model son, Qingyan remarked, her words dripping with sarcasm. You brushed it off entirely and kept right on talking. Honestly, the happiest moment of my entire life was the exact second I bolted away from that birthday party. To hell with the company. To hell with Yoko. I couldn't care less about any of it. All I wanted was to find you and tell you I'm sorry. You could stab me with a dagger 1,000 times, or even throw me tied to a boulder into the sea, and I wouldn't care at all. Qingyan fell silent for a long moment before suddenly asking, So, did you only come looking for me because you wanted to rebel against your dad? You let out a long sigh. You're way too sensitive, you know that? You stared straight into her eyes, making a vow word by word. No matter what you think, I'm never leaving you. At least, not until you tell me to get lost. Otherwise, let me get run over by a car and die. Right at that moment, a single white cherry blossom petal drifted down onto Qingyan's shoulder. You raised your hand, wanting to brush it away for her, but stopped short. You didn't dare touch her. She wanted to hold your hand too, but held back for the exact same reason. Terrified of breaking the spell of that warmth, she just spoke flatly. You don't need to curse yourself like that. Whether you leave or not doesn't matter to me. I admit I have my selfish motives. You slowly pulled your hand back. I'm tricking you, but I plan on keeping up this trick for the rest of my life. In a surprising twist, Qingyan didn't mock you. She muttered under her breath. You really have no sense of self-respect, latching on to me like a headless fly. Don't ever say things like that to me again. You immediately jumped in with a cheeky grin. If you're worried about being trapped like a parasitic vine, then I'll just become the host tree clinging to you instead. That way, I'm the one who can't live without you, and you won't have any reason to push me away anymore, right? Qingyan snapped her gaze up, staring right at you. She could probably see a spark of vitality and courage in your eyes that she had never witnessed before. Yet that exact courage sent a shiver of genuine fear through her heart. You looked at her with absolute sincerity. Just yesterday, when you were standing in front of Riku, caught off guard by your sudden pivot, she furrowed her brow and deflected, Do you hate Riku that much? Why do you lose your temper every single time he shows up? That guy is always hovering around you. Let me tell you straight. He's total trash. Stay away from him. For some inexplicable reason, a wave of resentment welled up inside Qingyan. She asked coldly, You don't seriously think I like him, do you? You replied as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Even if you did happen to like someone, it ought to be me, obviously. The food in front of her had already gone mostly cold. Qingyan picked up her chopsticks again, anxiously poking at her noodles. Why on earth would you think that? I would never like you. Anyone with a brain can figure it out. I'm taller than him, and even though my temper is a bit rough, I care about you way more than he ever could. And I treat you infinitely better. You emphasized every single syllable. If you're the kind of person who falls for whoever treats you right, then you're only allowed to like me. Can you please not joke around at a time like this? Qingyan suddenly raised her voice, a hint of genuine grievance slipping into her tone. You froze for a split second, then quickly backtracked. I'm not joking, but there's one thing I still have to stress. Stay away from Riku. He really is no good. You're one to talk. Pot calling the kettle black. Silence descended between the two of you once again. After a good long while, Qingyan slid a plastic cup over to you. Inside was some transparent liquid. She muttered softly. Drink up. It's about as close to an apology as I'm ever going to give you. You took it from her. But the very next second, the unmistakable aroma of strong sake hit you straight in the face. The burning hot liquid instantly scorched your throat. You winced in pain while pointing at her. Are you out of your mind? Why'd you open sake? How am I supposed to drive home now? Qingyan let out a huff. I bought it with my own money, so I'll do whatever I want. Just pretend it was fed to a stray dog. My lips are gonna blister. You chuckled wryly as you stood up. Well, time's about up. Let me walk you back to the station. After paying the bill, you dragged her along to browse through the shops. A newly opened bubble tea shop had a massive line winding outside. When the clerk caught sight of her standing next to you, they asked knowingly if you wanted to upgrade to a couple's cup set. You immediately shot the idea down, bought the teas, and handed one to her while still grumbling under your breath. That clerk probably thought I was a broke loser who couldn't afford 2 separate cups. You aggressively tilted your head back and chugged your entire drink in one go, inhaling it like a starving beast before casually tossing the empty cup into a trash can with practiced flair. Holding her own bubble tea, Qingyan rolled her eyes in utter exasperation. Right at that moment, a real couple strolled past you both. They were sharing a single giant cup with 2 straws jammed into it. The guy looked down at his girlfriend with absolute adoration and said, "I swear, drinks taste so much sweeter when you share a couple's cup." The guy laughed and added, "It's true, because since you drank from it too, the whole thing tastes sweeter." With that, the couple walked off hand in hand into the distance. You stood there frozen like a statue, staring after their retreating backs. The next second, jolted by sudden inspiration, you dashed back to the counter to grab a spare straw, rushing eagerly back to shove it straight into Qingyan's bubble tea. She swatted your hand away with a clean slap. "We're a couple, we're supposed to share," you argued, trying your best to convince her. Qingyan gave you a look that hovered somewhere between a smile and a smirk. "We're a boy and a girl dating, not a registered couple." After arguing your case for ages with 0 success, you could only let out a long, regretful sigh. But right then, biting down on her straw, she suddenly asked out of nowhere, "Want to take me to see where you live?" "My place? Aren't you afraid it's dangerous?" "What danger?" She seemed to catch your drift, but deliberately refused to spell it out. After hesitating for a long while, her patience snapped, and she tossed her head, turning to walk away in a huff. "Fine, let's go take a look then. But fair warning, my place isn't anything special. It's basically a storage room." The entire walk there, neither of you said a word. Beneath the streetlights, her silhouette seemed completely enveloped by yours. Looking at the sheer difference in your physical builds, a dark thought crossed your mind. If you actually wanted to do something bad right now, she'd be completely helpless. While your mind was wandering into dangerous territory, you fished out your key and pushed the door open. In her wildest dreams, Qingyan never could have imagined that where you lived was literally a storage unit, a pathetic, dingy 6-mat room leaking clutter from every corner. 3 sheets of foam board partitioned the space into makeshift cubicles, and your specific room opened directly facing the metal roll-up security gate. The common area was just a narrow hallway with a concrete utility sink doubling as a kitchen, accompanied by a broken refrigerator that let out a rhythmic, rattling click. Your room was so tiny it barely fit a single futon. Suspended from a bamboo pole hanging overhead were your freshly washed clothes. There wasn't even a stool to sit on, leaving Qingyan standing awkwardly by the doorway. After thinking for a long moment, she offered, "Your room isn't messy." It was her very first time complimenting you to your face, though her tone remained stiff and awkward. You puffed out your chest with pride. "When you're living the bachelor life, you still gotta maintain standards." "Okay, I'm just kidding. If I didn't clean up, it'd smell worse than a landfill and nobody could possibly live here." She asked again, "Where do you wash up and shower?" You pointed toward the shared facilities. "This place is actually in high demand because the rent is cheap and they don't require a guarantor." You pointed vaguely at the other partition rooms. "The other units are all rented out by migrant construction workers. That's why I said it's pretty sketchy around here." Hearing that, Qingyan felt a mix of lingering anger and pity. In an uncharacteristically gentle voice, she urged, "Why don't you just go back home? Suffering like this in a dump like this makes no sense. Are you kidding?" You didn't look put out at all, casually inviting her inside. "If I went back home, I'd have to use my dad's luggage. How could I ever show my face to him after acting like such a rebellious jerk?" She looked around the cramped space, finding absolutely nowhere clean to sit, and ultimately had no choice but to perch on the edge of your futon. She took a small sip of her bubble tea, though it tasted completely bland against her tongue. The room felt bone-chillingly bleak, reeking faintly of damp mildew. "Here's a housewarming gift," you suddenly said, pulling a bag out of the fridge and handing it to her. "It's past expiration discount items. Take them back with you. You should save them for tomorrow. If I leave, am here, my lovely roommates will inhale the whole lot by morning." Qingyan could only hug the bag tightly to herself. It was freezing cold. Suddenly, she felt a wet droplet hit her shoulder. Water was leaking straight down from the ceiling. Seeing this, Yu scrambled to drag a few plastic basins out from under the bed, expertly positioning them over the bedding. Even so, a large patch had already gotten soaked. Yu brushed it off with total nonchalance, explaining, "Just rainwater pooling on the roof. Once this month is over, I'll find a new place." Qingyan inspected the dripping water, which carried a murky yellowish hue. It was glaringly obvious the water was far from clean. Looking up at Yu, Qingyan finally spoke up. "Why don't we go out and buy a brand new set? Otherwise, you're gonna freeze to death tonight."